Chapter 201. It was just a flash. So fast that Mu Yanjun couldn't help but laugh at himself. Was this an illusion? Wait for me to come back. I have something to say to you. With that, Mu Yanjun went out, and there was already someone waiting outside. How could he rush from the eastern snow mountain? It would take 7 or 8 days to go back and forth. He was now snatching people from the Grim Reaper. After Mu Yanjun left, the system said, "He's going back and forth. You're probably going to be cold. There are still 3 points of favorability left." Wei Wei Bai was very calm. Who said favorability must be brushed face to face? System? Question mark. Wei Wei Bai propped up his chin, and I guess I can see Mu Yanjun one last time. This man's character was so decisive. After catching the doctor, it was estimated that he would rush back day and night. It was not surprising that he would come back a day and a half earlier. Wei Wei Bai saw Xiao Mo standing at the door, beckoned her to come over, then arranged the pen and ink and began to write. Halfway through, Wei Wei Bai said to the system, "If you were a Baidu, it would be good. When I write a love letter and run out of words, I can look up poetry or something." The system was expressionless. "But it's poetry. I can do it." Wei Wei Bai held the pen and said casually, "Oh, it's not like the hoeing day at noon. The sun is at the end of the mountain." The system laughed coldly. "Back in the days, I was also a famous poet in the system world. Who didn't call me grandpa when they saw me? When I recited a poem, I didn't stop for 100 sentences, and I didn't stop for 1,000 sentences." Wei Wei Bai faintly interrupted it. "I'm done. You don't have to read it." The system was in the middle of pretending to be bad *SS and almost directly fainted. Wei Wei Bai handed the letter to Xiao Mo. Xiao Mo held the letter. "Is this for Du Zhu, Traitor Mu?" He had never been qualified to be a spy. Wei Wei Bai smiled. "If you can catch up with him, give it to him." Xiao Mo quickly nodded. "I'm sure I can catch up." After saying that, bubbly foam ran out. "Xiao Mo, have a safe journey." When Xiao Mo heard her words, she turned around and saw Wei Wei Bai leaning weakly against the door. Although her face was pale, her smile was very gentle. Bubbly foam didn't know why, but her heart ached. She didn't dare to look anymore and ran out. Seeing that everything was done, Wei Wei Bai couldn't help but stretch. It had been a long 6 months, but at least it was almost over. Wei Wei Bai, Slagstem, there won't be another -50 mission in the next world, right? The system replied, "Of course not. Do you think -50 is a cabbage that can be found in any plane?" Wei Wei Bai asked, "What does the next plane look like?" The system replied, "How would I know if it's random?" Wei Wei Bai, what was the use of this broken system? When Mu Yanjun arrived at the snowy mountains in the east, the doctor avoided him. Only a little boy stood in front of the doctor's door and saluted Mu Yanjun. "My master said, he will not treat the traitors who cause chaos in the world." When the people next to him heard this, they pulled out their knives. Presumptuous, Mu Yanjun raised his hand and stopped them from being rough. The little boy was not afraid. He just looked at them calmly. Mu Yanjun dismounted and his voice softened. "Your master, is he not afraid of death?" The little boy shook his head. "My master said that death is not important. What is important is that he does not save people who are not worth saving." Mu Yanjun's eyes were cold. "It's not me, it's my wife." The little boy cupped his hands and said, "Isn't saving her the same as saving you?" Chapter 202. This sentence made Mu Yanjun unable to refute. Mu Yanjun did not have so much time to waste on this doctor's strange habits. He planned to directly kidnap him. The little boy seemed to know what he was thinking. "My husband is not here. He went into the mountains to find medicine," deliberately hiding. Mu Yanjun suddenly looked at the little boy, his eyes sharp as a knife. "So, did your husband say what I need to pay for him to come out of the mountains to treat me?" The little boy hesitated, then suddenly stepped back a few steps and pointed to the snow. "Yunil, my husband said you have killed too many people. Your heart is already broken. He does not believe you will really be willing to sacrifice yourself for others. If your knees are still bent, it is with good intentions that he is willing to come out." To let Mu Yanjun kneel, even the current little emperor did not dare. Mu Yanjun had also vowed that he would not kneel to anyone when he climbed to this position. He knew the taste of humiliation too well. So in the years to come, even if his knees were broken, he would not kneel to anyone. The little boy saw that he was unwilling and knew that it was impossible. Who did not know Mu Yanjun's current status? Who would dare to make such a person kneel? His husband also said that Mu Yanjun's heart was cold to this point. He certainly would not kneel. Mu Yanjun suddenly asked, "Does that guy think he can hide for a lifetime?" The little boy smiled bitterly. "My husband is not willing to treat people. Even if you find him, what can you do?" This was the big truth. Mu Yanjun coldly snorted. "If he is a quack, I will pull out his tendons and peel his skin." The little boy had not yet responded to the meaning of this sentence when he saw Mu Yanjun had spontaneously retreated several steps, chose a relatively clean piece of snow, lifted up the hem of his robe, and suddenly knelt down. The bodyguards behind him all knelt on the ground with a clatter. The little boy was stunned. Mu Yanjun did not even hesitate, did not struggle. His expression was cold and hard, so he knelt upright. The little boy could not help but say, "I did not expect that you would do this for a woman." Mu Yanjun lifted his eyelids and suddenly smiled coldly. "You better start praying that your husband can save her, or I will dig out his ancestral grave and grind his bones to ashes." He knelt for an entire day. The snow on the eastern mountain was thick, and it was the end of winter. Snow fell like goose feathers. Mu Yanjun knelt in the snow. The cold seeped into his bones, hissing. He hated the cold the most, because that would bring him back to that humiliating past. However, when he thought of Wei Wei Bai, it seemed that kneeling like this was not unbearable. That eccentric miracle doctor had finally appeared. When Mu Yanjun saw him, a white-haired old man, if he didn't have to rely on his medical skills, he could directly pull out a knife and cut him down. The old man gave him a bottle of medicine. "If you can make it in time, feed it to her immediately. Based on your description, she's probably at the end of her rope. I think she might not be able to hold on after these few days of delay." Mu Yanjun reached out and grabbed him, saying darkly, "You have to come with me? Old Zao, I can't leave. I'm too old and won't live for long. If you travel day and night like this, I reckon I'll die in less than 2 days." Mu Yanjun's speed on the road was suicidal, except for the elite guards he brought with him, who could endure it with him. When Mu Yanjun heard this, it was also true that carrying such a drag bottle would slow down his speed. Anyway, the medicine was already in hand, and he didn't have time to worry about anything. He immediately mounted his horse and rushed back. Fast crossing system. Man God, you come here. /fast crossing system. Man God, you come here. Full text / fast crossing system. Man God, you come here. Download fast crossing system. Man God, you come here. Mobile fast crossing system. Man God, you come here, comma. Chapter 203. When Xiaomo caught up, she just happened to bump into Mu Yanjun, who was going back. When Xiaomo saw him, her breath suddenly dissipated. She rolled straight down from the horse, then reached out and handed him the letter. "This is the letter the Empress asked me to give you." Mu Yanjun saw the letter in her hand, and his heart sank. "Is she all right?" Xiaomo immediately shook her head. "It's all right, but I couldn't catch up with you. So this letter has been delayed for a few days." Mu Yanjun took the letter. He opened it, and the words on it were delicate and beautiful. He quickly read it, and before he could understand the meaning, his heart was already soaring. Then, he read it again. He read it carefully and slowly. Ding! The male lead's favorability is at 98. Wei Wei Bai was counting on her fingers, counting the remaining time, when she heard the favorability reminder. Ding! The male lead's favorability is at 99. There was only 1 day left, and the favorability was only a little bit left. The system cursed. What did you write? Without meeting, the favorability could increase, of course. It was because of the letter. Wei Wei Bai smiled. What he cares about the most, I wrote it. Mu Yanjun over there desperately rushed back. His mind was full of messy thoughts. She liked him. He was the only man she was moved by from beginning to end. After being moved by you, the person I like from then on is like you. Jun Bayan is another you. The wrinkles between your eyebrows are the same. The angle of your eyes is the same. The smile on your lips is the same when you are happy. Did his disguise have so many flaws? I know that it's not you, but I can't help but think, If you had never been hurt, would you be as clear and clean as June Bayan and as warm as the sun? Yes, if he had not suffered so much in the past. He might have been like June Bayan. Could it be that their meeting would be the beginning of another beautiful life? You are obviously different, but you are similar everywhere. Only she would be able to notice the similarities between him and June Bayan. Perhaps I have been treating June Bayan as your substitute from the very beginning. Mu Yanjun saw this sentence, and his heart crumpled into a ball. His blood heated up again, and finally a kind of joy rushed to his heart. It turned out that the person she liked from the beginning was still him. The system said, "Only 10 minutes left." Wei Wei Bai lay on the chair and looked at the clouds in the sky. There was still 1 point of favorable impression left. If Mu Yanjun did not come back, it was estimated that she would really ascend to heaven. Just as she was thinking this, she suddenly noticed something and looked up. She saw Mu Yanjun standing not far away, panting. Mu Yanjun staggered a few steps before he stood firm, and then suddenly rushed to her side. He poured out the medicine from the bottle and stuffed it into her mouth. Before Wei Wei Bai could see his actions, he had already swallowed the pill. Mu Yanjun saw her swallow the medicine, gasped heavily, and swallowed a mouthful of blood. He had been in too much of a hurry these past few days. His qi and blood were attacking his heart. Once he relaxed, he couldn't help but want to vomit blood. Wei Wei Bai touched her lips. She didn't know how effective the medicine was, but she felt her body was light and floating. System, good medicine, but it can't save you. Wei Wei Bai couldn't help but smile, and suddenly said, "You're back?" Mu Yanjun saw her face improve, and said gently, "I'm back?" Wei Wei Bai asked again, "Then what do you want to say to me?" Mu Yanjun said seriously, "If you like June Bayan, I will pretend to be June Bayan to accompany you all my life." This was what he wanted to say to her when he came back. However, her letter had disrupted his plans. Because she said, "But I always like you, June Bayan is also you, Mu Yanjun is also you. So it doesn't matter to me who you pretend to be." Wei Wei Bai's voice gradually softened. "Ding, the male lead's favorability is at 100. The task is complete. Ready to leave the plane?" Mu Yanjun reached out and slowly grabbed her fingers. "I may not be good enough, but in the future, I will be good to you all my life." Countdown, 3, 2. Wei Wei Bai's breathing gradually stopped. Mu Yanjun's voice trembled. "Wei Wei?" Full text //. Download. Comma. Chapter 204. Wei Wei Bai did not respond. Mu Yanjun did not dare to move, just sat there. "When the little emperor grows up, I will gradually give him the power and let him help the Bai family." The clouds in the sky were almost condensed, and finally it began to rain. Several guards opened their umbrellas and came to his side, covering his head and Wei Wei Bai's body directly. No one dared to say a word, afraid to disturb Mu Yanjun. Mu Yanjun was still muttering to himself, "Please forgive me for not being able to help the Bai family right now, because I want to give my dead parents an account." Wei Wei Bai was very quiet. Mu Yanjun's voice had a moment of panic. "Or do you want the Bai family to be rehabilitated now? I will let people overturn the Bai family's case, and send your family's bodies to the Bai family cemetery to set up a tombstone." Wei Wei Bai, Mu Yanjun's voice was dull and humble. "What do you think?" She did not answer. So he asked again, "What do you think?" Mu Yanjun was silent. Everyone was silent. Only the sound of the rain falling echoed through the world. After a long time, he whispered, "It's raining. Let's go inside, Wei Wei." Mu Yanjun took her into his arms. Her body was soft and cold. "Why is it so cold? Your body is not good. What if the wind blows and you catch a cold?" Mu Yanjun held her tight, and his footsteps staggered into the house. Because of her work, Xiaomo came back 2 days later than Mu Yanjun. As soon as she came back, Mu Yanjun's confidant came over. "Xiaomo, you go and see the Du Zhu. He has been keeping watch for 2 days and hasn't closed his eyes. We are very worried that he can't stand it." Xiaomo was baffled. "Keeping watch for what? Is it very uncomfortable to take medicine?" The confidant gave a wry smile, and Xiaomo immediately knew the meaning of the smile. When she saw Mu Yanjun, Xiaomo stood at the door and did not dare to enter. Mu Yanjun did not go crazy, nor did he talk to himself. He simply sat there, and on the bed lay Wei Wei Bai. He held her hand and looked at her for 2 days and 2 nights. It was also Mu Yanjun's physical fitness that was first class. If a normal person was like him, it was estimated that they would all collapse. Bubbly Foam walked in carefully. "Superintendent, it's done." Mu Yanjun was silent for a long time before he whispered, "That old man has been found?" Bubbly Foam recalled that on her way back, she had received a letter to capture that godly doctor. She was sure that she wouldn't be able to make it in time, so she set up a spy in East Mountain and told them to catch it while she rushed back. He didn't expect that Wei Wei Bai would leave after a day or 2 of delay. Bubbly Foam felt her heart ache, but she didn't dare to cry out loud. "We found him. He didn't run away either. Right now, he's being forced back." Mu Yanjun nodded. "You can go?" Xiaomo hesitated for a moment before risking her life to say, "Superintendent, about the Empress funeral." Mu Yanjun finally turned back. His eyes were bloodshot from exhaustion, his face was haggard, but his expression was still indifferent. "Go down and don't say anything else. I don't want to start a killing spree. If you provoke me again, not to mention you, there may not be many people in this palace who can live well." Bubbly Foam felt as if she had been doused with ice water, chilling to the heart. She immediately bowed and retreated, not daring to say anything more. After going out, she couldn't help but look back. Mu Yanjun had already returned his gaze to Wei Wei Bai. He sat upright, not doing anything else, just holding her hand and watching. Full text // Download. The Chapter 205. For a moment, Xiaomo's mind was moved, and he became sad. The Duzhu was afraid to move. Once the body moved, the brain also began to move. How could he not know that Wei Wei Bai was dead? He was unwilling to admit it, and did not dare to think deeply. He could only force himself to sit like this, convincing himself that Wei Wei Bai was just asleep and would wake up. Xiaomo felt that only when Wei Wei Bai's body began to rot would the Duzhu truly regain his senses and know that the person he was holding had been dead for a long time. But the strange thing was that Wei Wei Bai's body did not change at all. Even her pale complexion improved a lot. Although her body was cold, there was no doubt that she had fallen asleep. Not a trace of a corpse's characteristics appeared. Mu Yanjun guarded her, his eyes getting brighter and brighter. The divine doctor, the old man, was finally escorted over. He took a heart-protecting pill. "My old life is probably half gone." Mu Yanjun had not slept for 5 days, and anyone could see how tired his body was. But his whole person was abnormally awake, awfully and abnormally awake. After I let her take the medicine, she fell asleep like this. "I think I should ask you to come and see. When will she wake up?" The old man sighed and walked to the bedside to take Wei Wei Bai's pulse. In fact, this phenomenon is extremely rare. There is no need for treatment, but there is one particularly important thing to do. Mu Yanjun listened attentively, like a good student, his eyes burning with fire. The old man's voice lowered. "That is, I have to treat another person." Mu Yanjun leaned forward, unwilling to miss his words. As a result, the old man's hand was like lightning, and in an instant, a needle pierced his neck. Mu Yanjun's eyes suddenly widened, and his hand was already patting the old man's head. Xiaomo's hand stretched out and caught Mu Yanjun's attack. With this back and forth, Mu Yanjun could no longer hold on and fainted. The old man touched his head. "I almost died, but I don't think I will live long." It's good that he didn't go crazy when he woke up. There was no way to save Wei Wei Bai, and Mu Yanjun's state was simply one of grief, with all his internal organs having problems. If she didn't eat, sleep, or move, she was no different from a zombie. If she stayed up for another 2 days, she would probably die along with Wei Wei Bai. Bubbly Foam looked at old Zao. "You protected my superintendent's life. If you can't protect her this time, I'll kill you myself." With that, she turned around and left. She walked towards the place where they were being punished and silently accepted her punishment. Old Zao sighed. "No wonder my master said that you can't be a miracle doctor even if you sell sweet potatoes. Everyone treats me like a god. Even a god can't let a person who wants to die live." Mu Yanjun only slept for 2 hours before his eyes opened. He was shocked, and a rare look of panic appeared in his eyes. but he found that he couldn't move. Seeing that he was awake, Old Man Zhao said, "I'm giving you acupuncture. You're mentally weak, but I'll let you recuperate. You should go see the King of Hell." Mu Yanjun's eyes were gloomy, his face pale and haggard, but full of evil spirit, making people shudder. Old Man Zhao gave him another injection. "I didn't want to save you. After all, a person like you is extremely vicious. If I save you, who knows what kind of chaos this world will become." Mu Yanjun's voice was soft and strange. "Let go of me." Old Man Zhao shook his head. "This won't do. I can't save your heart. Saving you is compensation." Mu Yanjun suddenly laughed mournfully. "You can't pay it back. How can you pay it back? Even if you save everyone in the world, you can't pay her back a single hair." Full text //. Download. Collect button below to record this reading record. Chapter 206. The Old Man. "You're not stupid, you know she's dead." Mu Yanjun's whole body trembled violently, and the needles that pierced his vital points could no longer restrain him. When the old man saw this, he had to insert a few more needles. "Her situation is quite special. You couldn't make it in time, and the medicine had no time to take effect before she died. So the medicine's effect is all to protect the flesh, so that her body cannot rot for many years. Unless you burn her with fire, she is no different from ordinary people in deep sleep except for being cold." When the old man said this, he lamented. So when the little emperor heard this, he let people take her body away and burn it. When Mu Yanjun heard this, how could he not know the little emperor's mind? "Good, good, good." He said a series of good and sneered again and again. "Whoever wants to take her away, don't even think about surviving." After that, the needles in his body burst out of his body one by one, and blood gushed out of the wounds. When the old man saw this, he knew he couldn't save the situation. Since ancient times, the most hurtful thing was the word love. Mu Yanjun got rid of the godly doctor's needle shackles and directly flew out. The old man thought he was going to die, but Mu Yanjun had no time to kill him and disappeared in place. The old man trembled as he took out a heart protection pill and ate it. "I won't live long. Mu Yanjun, this guy is really vicious. If he doesn't kill me, is he going to slowly torture me?" In front of the palace, a huge pile of wood had been set up. Wei Wei Bai lay in the firewood, quiet and soft as if she was sleeping. Little Fatty's eyes were red, and his teeth were bleeding from clenched teeth. He cried hoarsely and said, "Send my mother on her way." Everyone in the palace, except for Mu Yanjun, tacitly agreed to send Wei Wei Bai on her way. The people on Mu Yanjun's side were afraid that their Du Zhu was infatuated with the devil, so tacitly agreed to use the little emperor's hand to burn Wei Wei Bai. The fire was ignited in an instant. Little Fatty could not take it any longer and knelt down crying. However, before the fire could reach Wei Wei Bai's body, a black figure dashed over and plunged headfirst into the flames. He picked up Wei Wei Bai's body and jumped out of the flames. Little Fatty saw the person clearly and shouted resentfully, "Mu Yanjun, you will not have a good death. My mother was killed by you, but you even want to taint her body. You are not human." Mu Yanjun held Wei Wei Bai in his arms. The flames scorched his hair and clothes, but Wei Wei Bai was not damaged in the slightest. He didn't answer, but said indifferently, "What kind of trash dares to step on my head? It's time to clean up the palace." At the beginning of this sentence, Mu Yanjun reverted back to the evil and cruel Juqiansui, who covered the sky with one hand. The emperor was under house arrest. The people in the palace were either killed or cleaned up, especially the people who tacitly agreed to send Wei Wei Bai's body out to be burned. Whether they were Mu Yanjun's confidants or not, they were all killed. Mu Yanjun was no longer willing to change for the better. He regarded the emperor as a puppet and the world as a slaughterhouse. Killing people became his only hobby. Mu Yanjun lazily looked out the door, blood staining the ground. He gently stroked Wei Wei Bai in his arms. "Wei Wei Bai, you see, I killed again today. If you beg me for mercy, I won't kill you. Okay?" Wei Wei Bai was very quiet. Mu Yanjun smiled. "If you don't speak, then I will continue to kill." He once said that as long as she dared to die, He would drag the people of this world to hell and bury them with her. Mu Yanjun held her cold body and said with temptation, I am such a bad person. If you are willing to teach me, I may be able to change for the better. Saying that, Mu Yanjun suddenly could not bear it. He rested his head on her cold neck and silently shed tears. Why won't give me a chance to change for the better? Chapter 207. When Yi Yuxuan struggled to get up from the bed, his whole body was drenched in sweat. He was trembling all over. His face was pale beyond words. Suddenly he couldn't stand it and hugged himself, gritting his teeth as if he wanted to call out someone's name. But he silently whispered many times. But he couldn't call out the name of the woman in his dream. His heart was beating fast, and when he closed his eyes he could see the sea of fire in his dream spreading out, swallowing him up at any time. He looked down at his hands, as if he was still holding her. Those joys and sorrows were slowly fading, but the kind of love that went deep into his bones seemed to be transmitted to him from the man named Mu Yanjun. Yi Yuxuan knew that he had been particularly wrong recently, and this kind of wrongness had made his mood fluctuate. For example, now, he actually felt sad. Was it sadness? His chest hurt as if someone had opened a hole. He had checked all the instruments, but there was no problem with his body. Yi Yuxuan was at a loss for a while before he got out of bed. Just out of bed, a servant came over and whispered, Dr. Qin is here. Yi Yuxuan nodded faintly. He asked the servant to pour him a glass of water, and then took it downstairs. As a result, he found his door open, and Qin Xiu directed a bunch of medical staff to move in all the medical instruments. Yi Yuxuan watched quietly. There was no trace of ripples in his dark eyes. Qin Xiu looked up and saw Yi Yuxuan. He was used to his dead face and quickly greeted him. My guest room is still open. Yi Yuxuan nodded. Isn't your guest room reserved for a lifetime? He lived in a lot of rooms, and Qin Xiu often came, so he reserved a room for him. Qin Xiu. Of course I know, so I used it for the time being. Yi Yuxuan didn't say anything. Qin Xiu didn't need him to ask and said, You think I want to come here to live? You're wrong. I have a lot of things to do in the hospital. How can I live here? Yi Yuxuan was too lazy to even respond. Qin Xiu spontaneously continued. So I gave my room to your fiancée. Yi Yuxuan thought for a moment before saying calmly, Wei Wei Bai? Qin Xiu. Yes, I have sent her to her room first. Old Master Bai suspects that there are many problems in his family, especially when Wei Wei Bai was kidnapped from the hospital 2 days ago. He feels that he can't trust the people around him, so he entrusted Wei Wei Bai to you first. Aren't you her fiancé? Yi Yuxuan thought for a while. I don't have time to take care of a patient. Qin Xiu. That's your fiancé? Yi Yuxuan nodded. Then I don't want a fiancé. Qin Xiu was shocked. What? Yi Yuxuan. You can move her in, but you can take care of her yourself? Qin Xiu roared. She's not my fiancé. Yi Yuxuan looked indifferent. I'll give her to you. Qin Xiu spat out a mouthful of old blood. He was defeated. Yi Yuxuan shouldn't have a fiancé. He should live with a robot. Qin Xiu decided not to talk to this mentally retarded emotional child. He needed to be alone. No, he needed to arrange the environment for Wei Wei Bai. After all, she was not in good health and had been sleeping for a long time. She needed special care and medical equipment to maintain her life. Qin Xiu moved quickly and arranged the equipment. Seeing that Wei Wei Bai's condition was stable, he ordered the caregiver to stay overnight. After he walked out of the room, he saw Yi Yuxuan still sitting on the sofa in the living room with a glass of water in her hand. She seemed to be thinking about something. / to TXT. Phone. Chapter 208. Qin Xiu was also thirsty. After asking the servant to bring him water, he took a big gulp and said, You have insomnia? Yi Yuxuan nodded lightly. I think there is something I need to think about for a while. Qin Xiu went to the sofa opposite him and said while drinking water, What problem needs to be thought about? Could it be that the company was going to close down? Yi Yuxuan said calmly, I'm thinking, will I be able to kill a corpse? Qin Xiu spat out the water in his mouth. Kill a corpse? Yi Yuxuan said calmly, In my dream, the man I dreamed of has always wanted to kill a corpse. Qin Xiu, stop, stop, stop. What strange dream did you have? Yi Yuxuan looked absent-minded. I dreamed that she was dead, but the corpse was always as cute as sleeping. Qin Xiu said in a strange tone. Cute? Yi Yuxuan actually described a person as cute. The sky was falling. Yi Yuxuan repeated seriously, yes, cute? Then he continued, and the man in the dream. Many times he couldn't help but want to kill a corpse. The Du Zhu and the Empress Dowager follow up. The steam from the hot spring was hazy, and in this steamy space, there was a faintly discernible and ambiguous breathing sound. A petite and soft figure quietly crouched by the hot spring, long black hair hanging in the water, floating like seaweed. And on her body, a tall and strong body was tightly pressed against her. Mu Yanjun's face was a little flushed, and his eyes were frighteningly hot. He endured and struggled for a long time before gently letting go of her body, not doing the most beastly thing. In the end, when did it start? Was it day after day looking at her sleeping corpse without any response? Or was he beginning to go crazy, morbid, and even twisted? He had exhausted all means to stop himself, but in the end he couldn't help but take off her clothes. Only when he touched her cold skin did he feel that he was still alive. Killing people could no longer arouse any reaction in him. She was dead. He knew. He always knew. He even knew how dark and terrifying it was for him to refuse to bury her. When the little emperor was 6 years old, he would rather burn her body than leave it to him. Perhaps she knew from the start that he would do such a blasphemous thing to her. There were many times when he really wanted to do that kind of thing, but when it came to the last step, he looked at her quiet face and couldn't do it. He was afraid that when they reached the bottom, she would be angry and ignore him. Although they were already married, they were only one step away. He still didn't dare to take the risk. Mu Yanjun endured for a long time before he suppressed the burning sensation in his body. He did not really break through the line of defense and enter her. He carefully cleaned her body and dressed her in comfortable and beautiful clothes before carrying her out. In the empty palace, servants were running in all directions. When he knew that the little emperor had begun to build up his forces and began to contact the military forces of all sides, intending to stand on his own, he did not stop him. He would even lend him a hand from time to time. The little emperor had also grown up. Mu Yanjun counted. He was 16 years old this year. 10 years had passed. He had guarded Wei Wei Bai's cold corpse for 10 years. So fast, but also so slow. Mu Yanjun held Wei Wei Bai and slowly walked to the entrance of the palace. He saw a young man with a tall figure, wearing armor and holding a long sword, leading the imperial guards to surround the palace. The young man's face was handsome and cold. He pointed his sword at Mu Yanjun and said, "Thief Mu, give me back my mother, and I can still give you an intact corpse." /collections at the bottom to record the reading record. Chapter 209. The little emperor grew up very quickly. He lived under Mu Yanjun's feet and endured humiliation. Under this humiliation, step by step he began to struggle for power and profit. Now he could finally take a sword and take revenge. Mu Yanjun's face was calm. He gently brushed a strand of Wei Wei Bai's hair that was blown by the wind behind her ear. His expression was indescribably gentle, and then he looked up at the little emperor. "Again? She has been mine from beginning to end. How can you say she's yours?" The little emperor's eyes were red with anger. He said word by word, "My mother is dead. The dead are the most important. How can you hold on to her body? You won't let her go to reincarnate in peace, will you?" Who in the palace did not know that Mu Yanjun and his mother lived and slept together. He had seen a lot of shady things. How could he not know the dirty thoughts of this castrated goods about his mother? "You keep saying that you love my mother, but what you do is to humiliate her. Where did you get the face to say that you love her?" The little emperor said this, almost choked with sobs. He hated that he did not have the strength to protect Wei Wei Bai, and hated that he grew up too slowly. When Wei Wei Bai died, he could not have a grand burial. Mu Yanjun's eyes were gloomy as he looked at the little emperor. He suddenly smiled. "I did it on purpose. I heard that as long as a person's body is not buried, her soul can only be imprisoned beside the corpse. The little emperor suddenly remembered that this traitor had once invited the temple's eminent monks into the palace. Sure enough, he heard Mu Yanjun say with a smile, "I invited the eminent monks and cast a spell to lock the soul. If a person really has a soul after death, she can't escape from me. She can only stay by my side day and night." The little emperor trembled, and his eyes were bloodshot. He angrily shouted, "Mu Yanjun, is this how you love a person? You are simply a madman." The smile on Mu Yanjun's mouth widened, and finally twisted crazily. "I have long been a madman. Even if she dies, she can't get rid of me. I want her to be entangled with me all her life." The little emperor waved his hand. "Kill your way in and capture him." If he did not cut Mu Yanjun into 1,000 pieces, he would not be satisfied. However, before anyone could do anything, flames suddenly sprang up. The palace had already been splashed with oil. With a little bit of fire and wind, the flames immediately soared into the sky. To avoid the fire, everyone had no choice but to retreat. The little emperor saw Mu Yanjun standing in the fire, holding Wei Wei by, and for a moment he couldn't help but rush into the fire. The people behind him immediately hugged him. "Your Majesty, you can't go in. This fire can't be put out. How can you survive if you go in?" The little emperor ignored him and screamed at Mu Yanjun, "Mu Yanjun, you let go of her. You let go of her for me." If this kind of fire continued to burn, it would not be extinguished until everything was burned to the ground. Mu Yanjun held Wei Wei by. The two of them burned to the end, and simply could not be separated. Hearing the little emperor's words, Mu Yanjun raised his eyes and smiled. In the light of the fire, this smile was unspeakably relaxed, and even the mole under his eyes was gorgeous. Then he held Wei Wei by, turned and slowly walked into the palace full of flames. Alive, they could not be together. Dead, burned to ashes, they had to melt into a ball. In the past 10 years, he had been trying to integrate with her day and night, but always at the last step, he stopped. Because he knew that even if he got her body, it would be a dead thing. If there was a next life, and she knew that he was so dirty, she might not want him. Now that they were dead, they could burn a piece together, and they could not be separated. It was deeper than the union of the body. Chapter 210. Mu Yanjun couldn't help but hold her more tightly, and the flames began to devour their bodies. He looked down at her, gently bowed his head and kissed her lips. Then he rested his head on her neck, whispering softly, "I miss you, Wei Wei." Qin Xiu covered his head. He felt a migraine. "What the hell is this?" Yi Yuxuan continued. In the end, the little emperor couldn't separate the ashes of the two people, and could only indignantly bury them in an urn. Qin Xiu waved his hand. "I think you must have a problem recently." Yi Yuxuan nodded. "I know." Qin Xiu, "You must have been stifled, so you started to become abnormal. Even your dreams are so abnormal. And you have been dreaming of love every day during this time. Don't deny it. You must have gone crazy from wanting to fall in love." Yi Yuxuan looked at him silently. Qin Xiu fiercely clapped his hands. "What are you looking at me for? Otherwise, what are you dreaming about? Over the years, don't talk about women. You haven't even used your hands a few times. Which man is like you?" Yi Yuxuan calmly said, "I think it's not like a dream. It feels more like reality." Qin Xiu, "Mom, is your paranoia so serious? You want to treat dreams as reality?" Yi Yuxuan was too lazy to persuade others. He stood up. "I'm going to the company." Qin Xiu reached out and grabbed him. "Why are you going to the company at 4 in the morning? I'm telling you, you should fall in love and break sea. I've seen a lot of old virgins like you. You want women so much that you're crazy." Yi Yuxuan tried to pull his hand away, but found that he was holding on tightly. Qin Xiu continued, "You should go and meet your fiancée now and fall in love with her. When the conditions are right, you will be able to do some embarrassing things. So you won't always have those unfulfilled dreams." Yi Yuxuan, "Let go." Qin Xiu, "Young man, don't be shy. I've been there, you know? I understand the pain of never falling in love," Yi Yuxuan said. "Old virgin, let go." Qin Xiu was shocked and stood still. Yi Yuxuan, who had easily defeated the enemy, turned around expressionlessly, and went to work at 4 in the morning. Qin Xiu clutched his chest. Yi Yuxuan, I shouldn't have saved your future wife. I should have let you have a taste of loneliness. After Yi Yuxuan left, Qin Xiu sighed and felt that he had aged many years. He remembered that he should check on Wei Wei Bai. After all, she was still asleep. However, just as he opened the door, he heard the nurse's voice. Miss Bai, wait. This needle can't be pulled out like this. Wei Wei Bai couldn't care less. She just wanted to strangle the system. That lousy system had used her life points to exchange for a life-prolonging pill. Her 1 month's worth of life had been completely exchanged. In addition to the life guarantee that was given to her in the previous dimension, 5 days of her life had been deducted. When she woke up and heard that she owed the system 5 days of life, she immediately had a heart attack. Not to let her die, the system directly used a life-prolonging pill and obtained 10 days of life. After deducting, there were only 5 days left. After deducting again, there was only 1 hour left. 5 days of 120 hours, there was only 1 hour left. She wanted to hack the system to death. Who would believe that it wasn't the system's doing? The system comforted. Host, calm down. Wei Wei Bai. Calm your sister. The system comforted. Don't be so open-minded. Isn't it just a little life? Don't worry about it. Wei Wei Bai, open your head. You better shut up. Otherwise, I'll stuff you into a beer bottle and smash you with a hammer. / Chapter 211. You can search Transmigration System. Idle. Come to Sashu. Calm on Baidu to find the system immediately shut up. She didn't have the time to ask the system what it deducted to leave her with only an hour of life. She had more important things to do now. Wei Wei Bai got off the bed and rushed to the door. She saw Qin Xiu open the door and look at her in shock. Wei Wei Bai had seen him a few times before. After all, he was the director of the hospital. She said quickly, "Hello, director. Where is this?" She woke up to a different room. Was she in the VIP ward of the hospital? Qin Xiu immediately said, "This is your fiancé's house. It's like this. Your father wants you to deepen your relationship. What the fuck are you doing?" Wei Wei Bai's hand touched his clothes like a hungry wolf pouncing on a sheep. She didn't have the time to listen to him. She immediately took his phone from his pocket and called her father. Once the call went through, she immediately said, "Father, that be *TCH by Yao Yao wants to kill me. I had a heart attack. She poured my medicine and wanted to steal my fiancé, my position in the company, and everything I have. I was lucky to not die. She even ordered that be *Starden Lu to kidnap me and drown me. You better get someone to control her and wait for me to go back." She paused for a moment before saying slowly, "Go back and slap her 1,000 times to wake her up. A wild chicken is destined to never become a phoenix. Even if she becomes a phoenix, I can pluck her feathers and cook her." The person on the other end of the line paused for a long time, as if digesting her words. Then, a chuckle came from the other end. "Elder sister, why don't I know what you're talking about? You've been sick for too long. Something must have gone wrong with your brain." Wei Wei Bai's heart trembled. "Bai Yao Yao? Where's my father?" Bai Yao Yao said, "You mean our father? He's asleep. It's so late, so don't disturb him." Wei Wei Bai sneered. "What do you want?" Bai Yao Yao sneered. "What do I want? I want you to die. Will you die?" Wei Wei Bai took a deep breath. "He's your father. Don't hurt him." Bai Yao Yao gritted her teeth. "Is he my father? Ask yourself honestly. Bai Changyin only has eyes for you, his precious treasure. I'm just a fucking weed. He was anxious when something happened to you, but if I died, he probably wouldn't even bat an eye." Wei Wei Bai walked out quickly, but she saw a completely unfamiliar house outside the room. It was a huge living room, and there was a bright and expensive crystal chandelier above her head. The butler was on duty in the middle of the night, and the servants came and went quietly. It was obvious that the door was specially designed and could not be opened without permission. Was it Yi Yuxuan's house? Only then did Bai Wei Wei have the time to remember that her strange and useless fiancé was a man who was so rich that he could rival a country. "What do you want? As long as you don't hurt my father, I'll agree to anything." Wei Wei Bai's weakness was Bai Changyin. When Bai Changyin was young, He was tricked by someone and had an illegitimate daughter like Bai Yao Yao. However, when it came to Wei Wei Bai Changyin was full of love. Bai Yao Yao smiled happily. Elder sister, my elder sister who is always high and mighty like a queen. How could you be so submissive to me? I'm at home now, and my father is by my side. Wei Wei Bai had already walked to the front door. On the other end of the phone, that woman's voice was still arrogant. I've tied a bomb to my father. I want you to choose now. Do you want to exchange your life for it, or do you want to watch him die? Save button at the bottom to record this reading. Chapter 212. Wei Wei Bai closed her eyes and forced herself to calm down. Then, she opened her eyes again with a fierce look in them. I choose to use my life in exchange for it. Qin Xiu had just walked over when he heard Wei Wei Bai's words. He was stunned. What happened? Wei Wei Bai turned around. Open the door. I'll lend you my car. Qin Xiu also realized that Wei Wei Bai was not in the right state. He immediately asked the servant to open the door and went to get the car. Wei Wei Bai quickly followed. When the car door opened, she squeezed Qin Xiu out of the way and sat in the driver's seat. She closed the door and started the car. Her series of actions were frighteningly fast. By the time Qin Xiu reacted, the car had already left. Qin Xiu was shocked. He suddenly ran to catch up with his car. Wei Wei Bai, give me back my phone. How could he play Mobile Legends without his phone? Yi Yuxuan's house was about an hour away from hers. Bai Wei Wei rushed over as fast as she could, and when she got home, the system reminded her, you only have 10 minutes left. Couldn't she live a little longer? What did this stupid system do with her life points? She had never managed to live past a day. Wei Wei Bai unlocked the door. The house was empty. There was not a single person in sight. Where were the dozens of servants? Were they all dismissed by Bai Yao Yao? Wei Wei Bai's heart raced. If it weren't for the life points that the system gave her, her body would have improved greatly. She would probably have a heart attack again. Suddenly, Bai Yao Yao appeared at the stairs. Elder sister, you're here. Wei Wei Bai looked at her coldly. Where's father? Bai Yao Yao looked at her gently. Father took sleeping pills. He's really vigilant. If I didn't find a chance to make him fall asleep, I wouldn't have been able to make him fall asleep. Wei Wei Bai walked up step by step. You want my life? How do you want it? Do you want me to jump off the building myself? Or do you want to cut my face with a knife and stab me a few dozen times to vent your anger? Bai Yao Yao suddenly said, Don't come over, elder sister. I'm scared of how special you are. If he didn't die from the poison, the car would fly into the sky. She felt that it was ridiculous, but she had to be on guard. Just as Wei Wei Bai was about to stop, the system said coldly, 3 steps left. Quick, Wei Wei, go up. Wei Wei Bai did not expect the system to suddenly remind her. What 3 steps left? Almost instantly, she chose to believe in the system. Bai Yao Yao's expression changed. Stop it. If Wei Wei Bai took a few more steps forward, she would be able to touch her. But Bai Wei Wei suddenly rushed forward a few steps. At the same time, the system also reminded, ding, lovey 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 you activated. Just as Bai Yao Yao was about to scream and ask Lu to kill Bai Changyin, her mind suddenly shook. Her eyes became unfocused, and when she regained consciousness, she was already looking at Wei Wei Bai with sparkling eyes. Elder sister, I love you. I love you. I love you. Wei Wei Bai was stunned. What the hell? Bai Yao Yao rushed over and hugged her happily. Wei Wei Bai was shocked and kicked her away. Bai Yao Yao was kicked to the ground. She looked up happily. Hitting is a sign of love. Elder sister, kick me a few more times. Kick me. Kick me. Wei Wei Bai felt like she was going to have a heart attack. It was disgusting. At that moment, the system began to recite emotionally. Dear, as a lonely old virgin dog in the middle of the night, are you envious of the lovebirds flying together? Are you crying silently by yourself, only able to watch those shameless men and women holding hands and returning home? Stop being envious and stand up. From now on, there will be someone in your life who loves you, hugs you, and kisses you. Hee hee. Wei Wei Bai staggered. Her 119 hours of life had been exchanged for such a stupid thing. Bai Yaoyao took the opportunity to hug her thigh. Her face was full of emotions. Elder sister, I love you so much. Kick me to death. Wei Wei Bai did as she wished and kicked her away. Get lost. Are you crazy? Transmigration system. My idol, come over here. 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 Download the at https://m.sashu.com// to make it easier for you to read it next time. You can click save at the bottom to record this chapter. Transmigration system. My idol, come over here. Chapter 213. You can search Transmigration system. My idol, come to Sashu. Com on Baidu to find the. When Enlu came out, he saw Wei Wei by kicking Bai Yaoyao away. He immediately took out the remote control for the bomb. He then rushed to Wei Wei Bai's side and hugged her. He said to her, I advise you not to act rashly. Now, all I have to do is press this button. Wei Wei Bai gritted her teeth and said, Enlu, you ingrate. You know how my father treats you, right? How could you do this for this B***TCH? Enlu took a deep breath and was about to say something when Bai Yaoyao suddenly jumped up and slapped him hard on the left side of his face. You made me angry. Look at my loving slap. I'm going to slap you. Enlu was speechless. Wei Wei Bai was speechless as well. Bai Yaoyao looked at Wei Wei Bai affectionately and suddenly slapped Enlu on the right side of his face. Elder sister, look. Even my slaps are in the shape of my love for you. Wei Wei Bai spat out a mouthful of blood. She couldn't take it anymore. She felt that she needed to take medicine, or else her heart disease would act up. Enlu touched his face blankly. The system added casually, actually, when I came back, I saw these two B***cheese setting up the bomb for your father. The life extension pill only gives you 10 days of life. After deducting 5 days, you only have 120 hours left. I was worried that you would be threatened by those B***cheese when you woke up and your life would be in danger. I could only use your life to buy the love package. Wei Wei Bai clutched her chest. Are you trying to disgust me on purpose? Just let Bai Yaoyao die. Why did you buy the love package? The system sighed. There are laws in the system world. We can't take someone's life directly. Also, you're too poor. You can't buy anything offensive. You only managed to get 3 minutes of 119 hours because the love package was on sale. Within those 3 minutes, Bai Yaoyao's love for you will be as big as the universe. She will do whatever you ask her to. The system paused for a moment before saying worriedly, you only have a few minutes left to live. The bomb still needs to be defused. After this, we will complete the next mission to save our lives. Wei Wei Bai knew that now was not the time to dwell on this. She was racing against time. She immediately said to Bai Yaoyao, help me remove the bomb on my father. If he wanted this bitch's life, he would have to defuse the bomb first. Enlu thought about the strange incident that happened before and looked at the change in Bai Yaoyao's personality. He immediately realized that this was definitely Wei Wei Bai's doing. He immediately restrained Bai Yaoyao with both hands. Miss Bai, what did you do to Yaoyao? Wei Wei Bai's face turned cold. I said, remove the bomb on my father. Those words were like a flame of love, striking Bai Yaoyao's heart directly. In that instant, she exploded with immense strength and flipped and looked over. Yes, elder sister. Even the dismantling of the bomb is in the shape of love you. Bai Yaoyao stretched out her hand with a blissful expression on her face and made a big heart shape. She then turned around and grabbed Enli's collar with a ferocious expression. Big sister already said, are you deaf? Defuse the bomb on dad. Enlu looked worried. Yaoyao, are you poisoned? Wake up. If you defuse the bomb, you won't be able to have a foothold in the Bai family. They had already put all their eggs in one basket, and there was no way out for them. With Bai Changyin's death and Wei Wei Bai's sickly state, Bai Yaoyao would definitely have a chance to control the Bai family. Bai Yaoyao suddenly thought of something. She reached for the gun in Enli's hand and pointed it at her chin. Open it for me, you pig. How dare you talk back to your elder sister? If you don't open it for me, I'll kill myself. Crossover system. Adonis, come here. /crossover system. Adonis, come here and read the full article at https://www.sashu.com//crossover system. Adonis, come here. Crossover system. Adonis, come here // to make it easier for you to read it next time. You can click Save at the bottom to record this reading. Crossover system. Adonis, come here, comma. Chapter 2:14. You can search Transmigration system. My idol, come to Sashu. Com on Baidu to find the. And Lu was shocked. Wei Bai added, if he doesn't defuse the bomb, kill him and then commit suicide. Bai Yaoyao's eyes were filled with love. Yes, elder sister. I will definitely shoot the bullet in the shape of a heart. Killing and committing suicide are all in the shape of love for you. Wei Bai looked exhausted. She didn't want to talk to this loving idiot at all. She felt like her IQ had been lowered to the lowest point. No matter how unwilling Lu was, he couldn't let the crazy Bai Yaoyao commit suicide. He did so much for Bai Yaoyao. Bai Changyin was in a deep sleep because he had taken sleeping pills. Wei Bai saw her father lying on the bed with a tired face and couldn't hold back the tears in her eyes. Although Lu slowed down, there were only a few steps to defuse the bomb. No matter how slow he was, it would be done eventually. Bai Yaoyao's eyes sparkled. Elder sister, the bomb is defused. Wei Bai nodded. You're good. Take him to his death. Bye-bye. Bai Yaoyao's tears flowed out of her eyes. Even when you want to kill me, you look so beautiful. I love you so much that I want to turn into fireworks and light up the sky with my little heart that loves you. Bai Wei, I really want to cover my ears. My heart is numb. Bai Yaoyao smiled in satisfaction and pointed the gun at Lu. Elder sister said that we should die. Bye-bye. She picked up the gun and shot at Lu. At the critical moment, Lu rolled down like a cat and dodged the bullet. He rushed in front of her and reached out to grab her gun. His skills were much better than Bai Yaoyao's. When he got serious, even 10 Bai Yaoyao's wouldn't be his match. Wei Bai's expression changed. She knew that if Lu knocked Bai Yaoyao out, she and Bai Changyin wouldn't be able to escape from Li's evil hands. She heard the familiar notification from the system. Countdown. 10 seconds. 9. There was no more time. Wei Bai's eyes hardened as she shouted at Bai Yaoyao, jump off the building right now. The reason why Lu became like this was because he liked Bai Yaoyao. If Bai Yaoyao jumped off the building, Lu could only chase after her. As expected, Bai Yaoyao rushed out without any hesitation. Even if I'm going to jump off a building, I have to show that I love you. Lu roared, Yaoyao, what's wrong with you? Wake up. He couldn't care about anything else and could only chase after them with all his might. Bai Yaoyao really wanted to jump off the building. Wei Bai immediately called her confidants in the company and asked them to protect Bai Changyin. For a moment, she forgot that this wasn't her phone. In a moment of panic, she directly pressed the familiar button and didn't realize that the number in the call record was wrong. When the call connected, she immediately said, come over quickly. My father is in danger. Bai Yaoyao is the murderer. She's working with Lu to kill him. She did not finish her sentence. A cold and calm voice sounded from the other side. Who are you? Wei Bai was dumbfounded. She hurriedly looked at her phone. Was it because she had pressed the button too quickly and called someone else? She didn't have time to talk nonsense and immediately hung up. She wanted to call the right person, but it was already time. The system will give a free newcomer gift package. Ding. Unlocked. The host will be in a vegetative state for 3 days. Please quickly complete the next mission to save your life. Wei Bai finally couldn't hold it in and shouted, don't you know how to give me anything other than the newcomer gift package? Was this system so poor that it only had the newcomer gift package left? Transmigration system. My idol, come over here. Transmigration system. My idol, come over here. /transmigration system. My idol, come over here. Transmigration system. My idol, come over here. Download the at https://msashu.com// to make it easier for you to read it next time. You can click Save below to record this chapter. Transmigration system. My idol, come over here. Chapter 215. Yu Xuan looked at her phone and suddenly felt that this voice was very familiar. However, she couldn't remember who this voice belonged to. He continued to work for a while before remembering that the number was Qin Xiu's. Yu Xuan called again, and the call went through. Qin Xiu's angry roar could be heard. Yu Xuan, I'm telling you, your fiancé's younger sister actually wanted to kill her. She even wanted to steal her fiancé's position in her company and her everything. She even wanted to drown her. Now, she wants to kill Bai Changyan. I'm in the hospital now. Wei Wei Bai ran to jump off a building. Wei Wei Bai fainted, and Bai Changyan woke up. Yu Xuan calmly hung up the phone. So, he really couldn't tell the difference between a dream and reality? He actually felt that the voice just now was very similar to the voice of the woman in his dream. However, he lowered his head and looked at his phone. It wasn't a dream. Qin Xiu's phone had called twice. He stood up abruptly, grabbed the suit jacket on the chair, and walked out. When Qin Xiu rushed to the Bai family's house, he saw Bai Yaoyao rushing up the stairs in a cheerful manner. Sister, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you even if I jump off a building. And Lu chased after her. Yaoyao, wake up. You've just been poisoned and hypnotized. What the hell is going on? Don't jump off a building. What the hell? Qin Xiu looked at them in a daze as they ran to the highest floor. Then, he immediately went to look for Wei Wei Bai. Wei Wei Bai fell beside the bed with a pale face. He was shocked and immediately rushed over to carry her. He felt that something was going to happen and had already called for an ambulance and a police car. After calling Yu Xuan, the ambulance arrived and the patient was quickly moved into the ambulance. When Bai Yaoyao jumped off the building, she was blocked by a canopy downstairs. She fell heavily and was sent to the operating theater. Wei Wei Bai was in good condition. Her vital signs were stable, but she didn't wake up. After Bai Changyan woke up, he looked at his daughter with a haggard face. When Bai Yaoyao fell, the surveillance cameras in the house were all destroyed, so he didn't know what happened either. However, he speculated that these recent events were definitely related to his second daughter. And Lu had already been locked up by him and was currently being tortured. When Yu Xuan rushed to the hospital, she saw Qin Xiu sitting at the door of Wei Wei Bai's ward, crying silently. His footsteps paused before he walked behind Qin Xiu and asked indifferently, "What happened?" Qin Xiu turned around, holding his phone. "I lost in the ranking competition again." Yu Xuan ignored him. "Who did you lend your phone to just now?" "Qin Xiu." "Wei Wei Bai." Yu Xuan immediately pushed open the door of the ward and saw a woman lying on the bed. She was sleeping peacefully. Because of her long illness, her beautiful face was a little haggard. Her lips were pale, and her complexion wasn't good. Even her long black hair had lost some of its luster. Yu Xuan didn't know what to think. He had seen her before. After all, she was his fiancée. However, he had no impression of her at all. Qin Xiu then realized that something was wrong and walked in. "What are you looking at?" The way he stared at Wei Wei Bai was too scary. Yu Xuan remained silent for a while before saying softly, "When she wakes up, I want to hear her voice." Her voice, for a moment, actually stirred up his emotionless emotions, causing his rock-hard heart to actually tremble. "Transmigration system, my idol, come over here." "Transmigration system, my idol, come over here." Transmigration system, my idol, come over here. Transmigration system, my idol, come over here. Download the at https://m-sashu.com Transmigration system, my idol, come over here. Chapter 207. When Yu Xuan struggled to get up from the bed, his whole body was drenched in sweat. He was trembling all over. His face was pale beyond words. Suddenly, he couldn't stand it and hugged himself, gritting his teeth as if he wanted to call out someone's name. But he silently whispered many times. But he couldn't call out the name of the woman in his dream. His heart was beating fast, and when he closed his eyes, he could see the sea of fire in his dream spreading out, swallowing him up at any time. He looked down at his hands, as if he was still holding her. Those joys and sorrows were slowly fading, but the kind of love that went deep into his bones seemed to be transmitted to him from the man named Mu Yanjun. Yi Yuxuan knew that he had been particularly wrong recently, and this kind of wrongness had made his mood fluctuate. For example, now, he actually felt sad. Was it sadness? His chest hurt as if someone had opened a hole. He had checked all the instruments, but there was no problem with his body. Yi Yuxuan was at a loss for a while before he got out of bed. Just out of bed, a servant came over and whispered, "Dr. Qin is here." Yi Yuxuan nodded faintly. He asked the servant to pour him a glass of water and then took it downstairs. As a result, he found his door open, and Qin Xiu directed a bunch of medical staff to move in all the medical instruments. Yi Yuxuan watched quietly. There was no trace of ripples in his dark eyes. Qin Xiu looked up and saw Yi Yuxuan. He was used to his dead face and quickly greeted him. "My guest room is still open?" Yi Yuxuan nodded. "Isn't your guest room reserved for a lifetime?" He lived in a lot of rooms, and Qin Xiu often came, so he reserved a room for him. Qin Xiu, "Of course I know, so I used it for the time being." Yi Yuxuan didn't say anything. Qin Xiu didn't need him to ask and said, "You think I want to come here to live? You're wrong. I have a lot of things to do in the hospital. How can I live here?" Yi Yuxuan was too lazy to even respond. Qin Xiu spontaneously continued, "So I gave my room to your fiancée." Yi Yuxuan thought for a moment before saying calmly, "Wei Wei Bai?" Qin Xiu, "Yes, I have sent her to her room first." Old Master Bai suspects that there are many problems in his family, especially when Wei Wei Bai was kidnapped from the hospital 2 days ago. He feels that he can't trust the people around him, so he entrusted Wei Wei Bai to you first. "Aren't you her fiancé?" Yi Yuxuan thought for a while. "I don't have time to take care of a patient." Qin Xiu, "That's your fiancé?" Yi Yuxuan nodded. "Then I don't want a fiancé." Qin Xiu was shocked. "What?" Yi Yuxuan, "You can move her in, but you can take care of her yourself?" Qin Xiu roared, "She's not my fiancé." Yi Yuxuan looked indifferent. "I'll give her to you." Qin Xiu spat out a mouthful of old blood. He was defeated. Yi Yuxuan shouldn't have a fiancé. He should live with a robot. Qin Xiu decided not to talk to this mentally retarded emotional child. He needed to be alone. No, he needed to arrange the environment for Wei Wei Bai. After all, she was not in good health and had been sleeping for a long time. She needed special care and medical equipment to maintain her life. Qin Xiu moved quickly and arranged the equipment. Seeing that Wei Wei Bai's condition was stable, he ordered the caregiver to stay overnight. After he walked out of the room, he saw Yi Yuxuan still sitting on the sofa in the living room with a glass of water in her hand. She seemed to be thinking about something. /to TXT. Phone. Chapter 217. She liked Song Yunhuan because he was a loner, and no woman could get close to him. She felt that this kind of man who didn't care about women was very challenging. So she made a bet with her roommate that within a month, she could get Song Yunhuan, this stubborn rock that never got close to a woman. Because Song Yunhuan had never been in a relationship before, he was confused by Wei Wei Bai's pure appearance and actually agreed to her confession. In the end, the two were boyfriend and girlfriend for 3 days and had just progressed to the movie stage. Song Yunhuan saw through Wei Wei Bai's true colors. He even knew about her bet with her roommate. Song Yunhuan, who felt cheated, posted some of her nasty ways of deceiving men online. He even asked for a breakup. Wei Wei Bai felt humiliated. Just as she was about to get revenge on Song Yunhuan, the doomsday virus broke out and zombies flooded the city. The two who had just broken up were forced to flee. Because there were too many people fleeing, and there was only one truck, Wei Wei Bai couldn't squeeze in. Song Yunhuan pulled her in out of kindness, but Wei Wei Bai remembered his humiliation and wanted revenge. After getting in the truck, she pushed him down and fed him to the zombies. Just as she finished pushing him, Wei Wei Bai transmigrated. Wei Wei Bai looked at her hand. Why didn't she react faster and grab Song Yunhuan? Now Song Yunhuan was being eaten by zombies. Who was she going to capture? Capture the zombies? No, she should be thinking about how to survive. Because the truck was overweight, she stood by the door and was easily pushed down. Some people were already trying to push her out. If she fell, she would probably be fed to the zombies too. The system reminded her again. Side quest reward has been issued. Please accept. Wei Wei Bai. Accept. The reward would be a super strong doomsday survival skill that allowed her to fly, or take a step back and give her a place to hide. System. Ding. Heartthrob aura has been issued. Wei Wei Bai. Heartthrob aura. What was the use of this skill? She was still useful in the entertainment industry, but what could a ghost like Doomsday do? He might as well get a cheat that would allow him to survive without eating. The people in front of the truck suddenly shouted, "No, the truck can't accelerate. If this goes on, the zombies will catch up with us." There were too many people, and the vehicle was too heavy. If the vehicle broke down, everyone in the vehicle would be fed to the zombies. Why don't we let some people get off the bus? It was unknown who had suggested this. However, this was the common thought of almost everyone in the bus. However, no one wanted to be the one to get off the bus. Once they got off the bus, they would be eaten by zombies. Wei Wei Bai stood by the back door of the carriage and stepped out of it. If some people were to be eliminated, she would be the first to be eliminated. Sure enough, there were already people quietly trying to squeeze her out of the car. Wei Wei Bai's expression changed. She turned around and saw that it was a senior from her school. A man who was usually so gentle and polite was actually so vicious and selfish. Just as she was about to say something, a gust of wind suddenly blew over. A system notification sounded in her ears. Ding. Heartthrob aura activated. A caption with pink love bubbles suddenly appeared in front of her eyes. Her slightly curly brown hair was blown by the wind. Her clear and bright eyes were shining with a moving light. She was as pure and clean as a Bambi fawn. Wei Wei Bai, what the hell? The senior looked at her in a daze and suddenly blushed. Wei Wei Bai frowned and was about to say something. Another string of pink captions floated in front of her. Her smoky eyebrows are furrowed. Her delicate and pretty face is filled with sorrow that makes me pity her. By Wei Wei. At the /crossover system, Adonis, come here and read the full article at https://www.sashu.com. Download Transmigration system. Adonis, come here and read this on your phone. https://m.sashu.com. Chapter 218. The senior's heart seemed to be captured by her sorrow. He immediately grabbed her hand. Don't stand here. It's easy to fall. Let's go inside. Didn't he want to push her out just now? His attitude changed very quickly. The senior pushed those people away and pulled Wei Wei Bai to the innermost part of the car. Wei Wei Bai realized that this senior had a lot of power. Many people were afraid of him and even listened to his orders. If it was someone else who dared to squeeze into the car at this time of the end of the world, they would probably be pushed out of the car. They came to the innermost part of the car. There was indeed a small group inside. The senior was one of the people in the group. The senior stuffed her into the innermost seat. Wei Wei, sit here. When the car leaves the city, my uncle will come and pick me up. Then he sat beside Wei Wei Bai and looked at her shyly with a red face. Wei Wei Bai pursed her lips and didn't say anything. She listened to them discuss how to get some people out of the car. After listening, she realized that this senior's family was very powerful. Especially one of his uncles was a high-ranking official who led the army. And the people in this small group were all second-generation rich, second-generation officials, or something of the same social class as Lin Xiao. This also made Wei Wei Bai understand why this group of people could receive such good treatment. It was because the car would run out of gas sooner or later. But if there was this group of powerful second-generation rich people in the car, then there would definitely be someone to save them. Wei Wei Bai heard someone scream. She frowned and was about to say something, but she heard Lin Xiao say, "Don't be afraid. There will always be some people who accidentally fall out. You will be fine." Wei Wei Bai looked at him in surprise. Was she close to him? In the original owner's memory, this senior was low-key and gentle, but he never played with people like them. Could it be that Lin Xiao had a crush on the original Wei Wei Bai? She just thought so. The string of pink bubbles appeared again. The beauty of her lowering her head is as gentle as the clouds in the sky and the fog by the sea. She is so fragile that it makes one feel pity for her. I can't help but want to hug her and protect her. Lin Xiao also became excited. Don't be afraid. I will protect you and not let you be attacked by the wind and rain. Wei Wei Bai was speechless for a moment. She knocked on the system and asked, "What's with the pink subtitles?" She was the only one who could see it, and she was so embarrassed by it. The system said, "It's the effect of the heartthrob effect. You're so beautiful in the eyes of others." Wei Wei Bai felt tired. Can we block it? This kind of subtitle could simply drive people to suicide. It was too unbearable. The system said, "I've blocked it, but the effect is still there. I think the subtitles are very good. It's very girly." Wei Wei Bai. Its brainless heart. Just as Lin Xiao excitedly wanted to protect her, the system's voice suddenly rang out. Ding! The male lead's favorability is at -40. Wei Wei Bai froze. Song Yunhuan wasn't dead yet? At this moment, in the pile of zombies that had swallowed Song Yunhuan, the unconscious zombies suddenly let out a terrible hoarse sound. It sounded like fear, but also like a warning. All the zombies suddenly twisted, their rotting bodies twisted into pieces by a huge force of space. In the pile of rotting flesh and broken limbs, a pale, colorless hand suddenly appeared. The hand was covered in blood, and it slowly bent. Then he slowly stood up. On his devilishly handsome face, there was a red circle in the center of his black eyes. He suddenly laughed softly. The laughter was hoarse and strange. Wei Wei Bai, I'm going to eat you. Last update, it's very late. Thank you to the girls who voted for me today. I'm going offline. See you tomorrow night. Moi. To make it easier for you to read next time, you can click at the bottom to record this reading. Chapter 219. When the car started to get chaotic, Wei Wei Bai was already mentally prepared. There were too many people, and the car was too slow. Even if Lin Xiao was here, when people were facing a huge disaster, even the second generation was useless, especially when a zombie jumped on the roof of the car, and a few people standing at the back door were pulled down by the zombie. Many people in the car broke down. They cursed and cried, and started to push each other. A few people fell off the car. Some people also noticed that the zombies seemed to be increasing in number. There were still people in other places, but the zombies seemed to be attracted by something, and they were chasing the car at full speed. In the end, it formed a terrifying zombie tide and followed them. It was a terrifying scene. It was enough to scare a coward to death. Wei Wei Bai asked the system, "Is there anything that can drive away zombies?" The system immediately nodded excitedly. Yes, there is. The mighty zombie killer, a good companion in the apocalypse. It can easily drive away zombies for you. Your safe choice is the mighty corpse-killing agent. Wei Wei Bai said, "Give me a bottle." She couldn't care about anything else now. If she was eaten by zombies, she would lose all her strategies. The system said, "This thing is expensive. You can't afford it." Wei Wei Bai's face was full of despair. "I did so many missions. Why can't I save up a single life point? Tell me, did you steal my life points? Did you make me lose everything?" The system became serious. How can you lose everything? Wei Wei Bai thought, what else does she have? Why didn't she see it? The system's tone became cheerful and cute. "You still have me." Wei Wei Bai said, "You know how to drive away zombies?" The system blew her a kiss. "How can I? But I will cheer for you. Come on, come on, come on, come on." Wei Wei Bai felt like vomiting blood. This stupid system, was it purposely trying to annoy her? It was better not to have a system like this. Also, was the system poisoned by love? Love, 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 love? Why did it speak so retarded? Lin Xiao suddenly grabbed Wei Wei Bai's hand and said seriously, "Wei Wei, don't be afraid. I won't let anything happen to you." Bai Wei Wei had no idea what kind of strange illusion this heartthrob temperament gave Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao's voice suddenly became shy. "Wei Wei, when we are safe, let's get married, okay?" Wei Wei Bai. Lin Xiao fidgeted for a moment. "I've even thought of the names of our children. It'd be best if we have two. A boy who looks like me and a girl who looks like you. Hee hee, then we can still be together when we're in our 70s or 80s. Bai Wei Wei felt pain in her chest. She didn't have a heart attack, but she was so angry that she fell ill. Suddenly, the car, the car, the car, the car, the car, The car. The car shook and suddenly skidded. Bai Weiwei only felt the car lose balance, and her whole body fell forward. Lin Xiao grabbed her, and the two of them were about to roll into a ball. The car seemed to have hit something and shook violently. Many people in the car were thrown out of the car. The zombies rushed forward. They began to bite the humans. The scene was cruel and terrifying. The thick smell of blood filled the air. The car also began to slow down. Suddenly, the car made a sound as if it was at death's door and stopped. Everyone screamed. The car stopping meant that they were all going to die. Lin Zhao's reaction was terrifyingly fast. He grabbed Weiwei Bai's hand and kicked a few people away. He squeezed out of the car, jumped out, and ran forward with all his might. Download the https://www.sashu.com/download the full article. https://www.sashu.com download the full article. https://www.sashu.com download the full article. https://m/sashu. COMT. EU. Chapter 220. Those who did not get off the car in time were swarmed by the zombies that caught up. Weiwei Bai did not turn back, but she could hear the roars of the zombies behind her. There were also the screams of people. It was like hell on earth. Lin Xiao ran forward hurriedly. In front of them were the buildings at the edge of the city, and an abandoned commercial area appeared. He said, "We can get out of the city once we get past here. My uncle is just outside the city." Weiwei Bai suddenly flung Lin Zhao's hand away. She said calmly, "You run first. I can't keep up with you." She was telling the truth. She really could not keep up with him. Lin Xiao was obviously trained, and he was a man, so his leg strength was much better than hers. She had already reached her limit by following him to this point. Now her legs were heavy, and her heart was beating so fast that it hurt her chest. She knew very well where a person's physical limit was, and she was at her limit now. Whether or not it was because of his charm, Lin Zhao's personality was still okay. She would just run as fast as she could. Lin Xiao turned back, touched. "You're so kind. Not only do you have the most beautiful eyes in the world, but you also have the most beautiful heart." Weiwei Bai could not hold it in anymore. Lin Xiao continued, "Why are you so cute, so beautiful, so..." Slap. Bai Weiwei swung her hand and slapped her. Lin Xiao was rendered speechless. Weiwei Bai sighed. The world was finally quiet. After dodging a few zombie attacks, Lin Xiao also realized that he could not bring Weiwei Bai out of the city. Even if she was the most beautiful burden in the world, his own life was still the most important. Lin Xiao said goodbye with tears in his eyes. "Weiwei Bai, wait for me to come back." "Goodbye." After saying that, he ran away madly. "Weiwei Bai, goodbye." The system said, "Quick, I see a place to hide in front." Weiwei Bai listened to the system and ran forward with all her might. Several zombies rushed over. The stench of rotting flesh almost made Weiwei Bai nauseous. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but these zombies seemed to be playing tricks on her. Every time she thought they would catch up, the zombies would slow down. Weiwei Bai saw the warehouse that the system had mentioned. She rushed into the warehouse and slammed the door shut. She pushed all the heavy objects in front of the door to block it. The chasing zombies roared outside the door. They banged against the door and howled. Weiwei Bai was so scared that her hair stood on end. If she was bitten by these things, she would immediately commit suicide. It was too ugly to become a zombie. She refused. However, the door of the warehouse was very strong, so the zombies couldn't get in for a while. Weiwei Bai sat on the ground, complaining to the system. "I think one of the zombies outside might be Song Yunhuan." Song Yunhuan fell into a pile of zombies. There was no way he was still alive. If he was still alive, he must have become a zombie. System. Maybe. Weiwei Bai felt sad. My target wouldn't be a body full of rotting flesh, 2 bulging eyes, 7 orifices oozing pus, and sparse hair, right? The zombies outside all look like that. System. They're all male leads. Even if they're a little ugly, just bear with it for a while. Weiwei Bai. I suddenly thought of a problem. System. What problem? Weiwei Bai. Favorability is only -40. System. -40 is already a scary number, but the host still thinks it's not low enough? Download the at https://m.sashu.com button at the bottom to record your reading record. Next time you open the bookshelf, you'll see it, if you like. Chapter 221. Wei Wei Bai. In the last world, it started at -50. In this world, I personally pushed Song Yunhuan into a pile of zombies, and he's only -40. Sure enough, for a man, having his penis cut off is true hatred. System. Isn't the host's focus off? Wei Wei Bai was just talking to the system to divert her attention. After all, there were zombies outside. Anyone would be scared. Wei Wei Bai looked at the door. Luckily, this door is strong. Otherwise, I would have been eaten long ago. Just as she finished speaking, the door suddenly shook. The screws on the door burst open one by one. Wei Wei Bai in the system. Hong. The door was actually kicked to pieces by something, and the broken pieces of the door fell to the ground with a crash. Wei Wei Bai sat on the ground, watching the sunlight pour in. A slender figure appeared outside the door, his back to the light. His black hair glowed with a strange light, and his handsome face had a twisted smile. I found you, Wei Wei Bai. His voice was a little hoarse, but there was a strange kind of sexiness to it. Wei Wei Bai froze. Countless thoughts turned in her mind. She calculated her reaction in 1 second. Then she recovered her frightened expression, and her voice trembled. Song Yunhuan? Song Yunhuan's eyes were dark, and the red light in his eyes was more obvious. He smiled. Yeah, you didn't think I'd come back? Wei Wei Bai's tears suddenly fell. After a few sobs, she suddenly got up from the ground, rushed in front of him, and hugged him. She burst into tears. Song Yunhuan, you're not dead. That's great, that's great. Her cries were full of relief, guilt, and relief. Song Yunhuan's body was hard and cold, like a corpse. He looked at Wei Wei Bai lifelessly, and his smile deepened. I thought you couldn't wait for me to die. Wei Wei Bai reached out her fist and punched his chest. I can't wait for you to die. How can you harm me like this? I've never liked someone so much. How can you treat me like this? She sounded like she was acting coquettishly. Song Yunhuan didn't seem to understand her. Do you like me? Wei Wei Bai looked up with tears in her eyes. What do you mean? I've always liked you. It wasn't easy for me to muster up the courage to be your girlfriend. Not only did you despise me, you even posted some slanderous things about me on the internet to insult me. Do you know that love turns to hate? I really wish you were dead. The red light in Song Yunhuan's eyes thickened. His smile became even stranger. Love? Wei Wei Bai bit her lip and said innocently, of course. Do you think I like you willingly? Do you know how embarrassing it is to like you? Your family is poor, and you're introverted. My friends all say that you're not likable at all. I've always wanted to marry into a rich family. How could I like a poor boy like you? System. You're so brazen and shameless. Wei Wei Bai's lips flattened, the tears in her eyes threatening to fall. But I liked you when I saw you. I kept telling myself that you had no future, that you couldn't give me the life I wanted. But I still liked you, but I couldn't bring myself to pursue you. My roommate made a bet with me, so I had a way out, so I went to confess to you. Song Yunhuan was silent. Wei Wei Bai was shy again. You actually agreed to be friends with me. Song Yunhuan was deep in thought. Wei Wei Bai was sad again. You don't like me. I slipped up. Luckily you didn't die. Song Yunhuan suddenly laughed. You really like me that much? Wei Wei Bai was embarrassed. You're always confessing to girls. You're so shameless. Song Yunhuan reached out and lifted her up. His smile was even brighter. Then I'll confess too. I especially like the way you get eaten by zombies. Then he threw Wei Wei Bai out the door. There were zombies outside. Transmigration system. Idle, come here. Transmigration system. Idle, come here. / transmigration system. Idle, come here. Transmigration system. Idle, come here. / the next time you open the bookshelf, you'll see it. If you like, transmigration system. Idle, come here. Chapter 222. Wei Wei Bai. The heartthrob effect doesn't work? She thought that her performance and the heartthrob effect would soften Song Yunhuan's heart a little. The system reminded her, the heartthrob effect is only useful for people with a favorability of more than 0. Song Yunhuan's favorability was -40. She didn't say it was only -40 anymore. -40 was too much. Wei Wei Bai fell to the ground. Her hand rubbed against the ground to slow down. Her skin was scratched, and blood immediately flowed out. The surrounding zombies seemed to have smelled the scent of fresh meat and excitedly surrounded them while howling. Wei Wei Bai's pupil shrank. Slagstem, does the heartthrob effect work on these things? System, heartthrob, not heartthrob. This effect doesn't work on anything that doesn't have consciousness. If zombies didn't evolve, they wouldn't have consciousness. Now that the apocalypse had just started, the only evolved zombie was Song Yunhuan. Wei Wei Bai, so this side reward, other than confusing a passerby, it doesn't have any other use? The system encouraged her. Wait until your favorability is above 0, then the effect will be useful. Wei Wei Bai roared. Ghosts can wait until then. They'll be eaten. Just as she finished speaking to the system, several zombies had already pounced on her. Wei Wei Bai was so scared that she rolled on the ground, narrowly avoiding the zombie attack. She looked at Song Yunhuan, her eyes full of helplessness and despair. Song Yunhuan was still smiling, standing in the sunlight, but his eyes were gloomy. The zombies seemed to have received some kind of order, and their attacks on Wei Wei Bai sped up. They opened their mouths, showing their stinking teeth, and ran quickly to catch Wei Wei Bai. Wei Wei Bai had no place to hide, because the entire warehouse was surrounded by zombies. And inside the warehouse, no zombies except Song Yunhuan dared to enter. Wei Wei Bai couldn't care less. She'd rather be torn to pieces by Song Yunhuan than be eaten by these zombies. Wei Wei Bai thought that at least Song Yunhuan was handsome. However, just as he ran into the warehouse, he was pulled by something and fell to the ground. A zombie's hand grabbed her leg and dragged her out of the warehouse. Wei Wei Bai clutched the ground so hard that her fingertips were bleeding. She felt the zombie's sharp nails digging into her leg, and blood began to gush out. Wei Wei Bai trembled all over. She suddenly felt a shadow looming over her. She looked up and saw Song Yunhuan walk in front of her. He slowly crouched down, a strange smile still on his handsome face. There was even a hint of malicious satisfaction in his smile. Do you know, Wei Wei Bai, when you pushed me out of the car, I was in the same situation as you. I was in despair and had no way out. I could only be eaten alive by zombies. Wei Wei Bai looked at him, her eyes red. Her voice trembled as she said, I'm sorry, Song Yunhuan. Song Yunhuan's smile twisted. Sorry for what? A woman like you should be the most selfish. Why would you apologize to me? Wei Wei Bai was dragged out step by the zombies. She dug her fingers into the ground, but her eyes were fixed on Song Yunhuan. I'm sorry, Song Yunhuan. I know that I'm not a kind person. I'm selfish and vain, narrow-minded and easy to enjoy, but I really didn't do it on purpose. I didn't want you to die. I just wanted to scare you. I didn't think that in the end, I wouldn't be able to hold your hand. Bai Weiwei sobbed when she said this. She used the last of her strength to reach out and grab his hand. A corner of his cuff was broken off. Chapter 223. When Wei Wei Bai tried to pull him up, he tore it open. Wei Wei Bai used all her strength to hold his hand. I'm sorry. Her face was full of guilt. Song Yunhuan didn't struggle, letting her hold on to his hand. Wei Wei Bai was almost out of strength. The zombie's strength was not something a human could fight against. She was at her limit. Suddenly, Song Yunhuan's fingers tightened, holding her back. Wei Wei Bai's eyes lit up, like hope, like joy. Song Yunhuan's voice was light, even gentle. I believe you didn't do it on purpose, but... His thin lips curved, the darkness in his eyes making her shudder. But, so what? After that, he let go of his fingers, one by one, letting the light in Wei Wei Bai's eyes dim. Because he let go, Wei Wei Bai was dragged out by the zombies. The zombies' fingers dug into her calf, the pain making Wei Wei Bai's scalp explode. She was pulled out of the warehouse, the sun shining on her. The zombies rushed forward, one after another, pouncing on Wei Wei Bai. Wei Wei Bai felt her legs, hands, and back all scratched and bitten by the zombies. System. Ding. The host is in great danger. Life subsistence allowance activated. Life subsistence allowance activated. Wei Wei Bai's pain disappeared, but the loss of life did not slow down. She looked up, her eyes full of despair and self-blame. But there was no hatred. Before she was drowned by the zombies, Song Yunhuan saw her open her mouth and say something. Song Yunhuan, I'm sorry. It was as if she really just wanted to scare him, but in the end, she couldn't catch him. Song Yunhuan suddenly walked out of the warehouse. The zombies were frightened, running in all directions. Every zombie was avoiding Song Yunhuan. When Song Yunhuan woke up, he found that his body was rotting, but for some reason, his flesh was regenerating. In the end, he didn't turn into an ugly zombie. Instead, it was no different from his previous appearance. The only difference was that he had endless energy and power. There were also corpse-like bodies. There wasn't even the sound of a heartbeat. He hated Wei Wei Bai. He hated her for making him like this. This hatred made him want to let Wei Wei Bai have a taste of what he had experienced. Although Wei Wei Bai was not in pain, she could still feel where she was hurt. From head to toe, there wasn't a single piece of good meat on her body. Wei Wei Bai was in a trance. Just when she thought she was going to die, the zombies suddenly dispersed. Her face was pale, and there were bite marks all over her body. It was a horrible sight. When Song Yunhuan came to her side, she looked up at him. Her face had not suffered any attacks. Her delicate and pretty face carried a trace of delicateness. Now that she was looking at him in a daze, it actually brought out a trace of pitiful gentleness. Song Yunhuan asked softly, "Does it hurt?" Wei Wei Bai just looked at him. She was in so much pain that she couldn't think straight. She suddenly stretched out her hand. Her fingers were covered in blood as she scratched the ground. Song Yunhuan, Wei Wei Bai struggled to get close to him. Song Yunhuan was very kind. He bowed his head and said, It was like he was treating a pitiful prey that he didn't care about. Wei Wei Bai struggled to sit up. This was the limit of her body. She couldn't stand up. Her hand just happened to touch his face. To make it easier for you to read next time, you can click at the bottom to record this reading. Chapter 224. The dust and blood on her fingers covered his face. Song Yunhuan was indifferent, as if he was waiting for her to curse him. Wei Wei Bai let out a sigh of relief and smiled softly. Song Yunhuan, I'm going to die, aren't I? Song Yunhuan calmly replied, yes. Wei Wei Bai finally relaxed. Then before I die, can I say something to you? Song Yunhuan didn't respond, just looked at her indifferently. Bai Weiwei's other hand suddenly grabbed his clothes and pulled his head down. She used the last of her strength to raise her head and kiss his lips. This was a kiss full of blood, but as pure as water. Song Yunhuan's body stiffened. The red in his eyes deepened. The kiss was brief. Wei Wei Bai smiled and said, I lied to you many times, pretending to be pure, innocent, pitiful, but I won't lie to you about liking you. She smiled, but her eyes were crying. I didn't grab your hand and made you fall out of the car. I'm sorry. Her voice gradually weakened. I didn't mean to. Her fingers lost strength and slowly let go of his clothes. Song Yunhuan, I like you. She fell back to the ground, her eyes losing light, covered by the air of death. In the end, darkness came and she finally lost consciousness. Song Yunhuan froze for a moment, then reached out and touched his lips. This was his first kiss, and his lips were still stained with the blood of her fingers. He stuck out the tip of his tongue and licked it. The taste of blood was sweet. For zombies like him, humans were really good food. Song Yunhuan, I like you. Like? Ding. The male lead's favorability is at -35. Wei Wei Bai felt like she was going to die this time. She had been caught and bitten by a zombie, and the virus would definitely erode her body. Her life support would only last for one day. After one day, she would feel unbearable pain. Heat, cold, pain. All kinds of uncomfortable feelings attacked her. She talked to the system in a daze, Slagstim. How can I defeat Song Yunhuan when I'm a zombie? When the time comes, I will be bald. My teeth will be crooked. My face will be full of rotting flesh, and my intestines will fall out and sway everywhere. His favorability will definitely not increase. The system kindly comforted her. It's okay. Just wash the rotten meat, stuff the intestines back into your stomach, sew it up with a needle and thread, and wear a wig. You'll look good again. The dazed Weiwei Bai was touched. Slagstim, do I really look good? The system replied, of course you look good. Even if you become a zombie, you'll still be the best-looking zombie. Weiwei Bai felt that she had the strength to fight again. She did not know how long she struggled before she finally opened her eyes. Everything in front of her made her a little confused. It was an old room. It was a little shabby, but it was very clean and had the smell of home. It was obvious that they had lived here for many years. She slept on the bed, the light green curtains fluttering in the wind. Weiwei Bai sat up and found that she didn't turn into a zombie. Her wounds had turned white. Her heartbeat, her body, they were all human characteristics. She had been bitten like that, but she didn't turn into a zombie. Weiwei Bai let out a sigh of relief. She got out of bed and walked out of the room barefooted. Then she saw that in the living room, Song Yunhuan was sitting on the sofa, reading seriously. Song Yunhuan saw her come out and asked gently, "You're awake?" Weiwei Bai was a little confused. "I'm not dead." Song Yunhuan shook his head. "You have a very special body. You're immune to the zombie virus." Weiwei Bai froze at first, but when she reacted, she smiled sweetly. "Really? I'm so lucky." Song Yunhuan saw that she was smiling so happily and smiled as well. "You said you like me. Is that true?" Weiwei Bai didn't expect him to ask this. She shyly bowed her head. After a moment of silence, she finally mustered up the courage to look up. Her eyes were very bright, full of smiles. "Yes, I like you." Song Yunhuan's fingers on the book tightened for some reason. He suppressed his restlessness and walked in front of her, reaching out and caressing her face. Then he smiled gently and said, "If you really like me that much, can you die for me?" Weiwei Bai, // to make it easier for you to read next time, you can click at the bottom to record your reading record. Next time you open the bookshelf, you'll see it, if you like. Chapter 225. Song Yunhuan didn't seem to think he had said anything scary. His tone was light, his eyes were calm, as if he was telling her that the weather was good today. Weiwei Bai was silent for a moment before she tapped the system. Change the male lead. The system was firm. No. She really wanted to put the system and Song Yunhuan in a firework, set it on fire, and send it to the heavens. Song Yunhuan looked at Weiwei Bai strangely. "Your body is very special. You might not be able to find one person immune to the zombie virus in 100,000 people. I want to use you for an experiment." Weiwei Bai felt her teeth chattering. Experiment? Song Yunhuan slowly walked over. He approached her, step by step, like he was catching prey. Weiwei Bai stumbled back. "Song Yunhuan, I don't want to be an experiment. You can't do this to me." Song Yunhuan smiled. "What? Don't you love me? You're not even willing to die for me. How can you say you love me?" Weiwei Bai glared at him. "The Song Yunhuan I like doesn't treat human life like grass. He doesn't use living people for experiments." She didn't know where this sentence stabbed into his sore spot, but he suddenly became furious. The red light in his eyes became more intense, and he quickly threw Bai Weiwei to the ground. Weiwei Bai couldn't run fast enough. Her whole body was pressed to the ground. The back of her head hit the ground, and she felt a dull pain. She was in so much pain that she kicked him. "Song Yunhuan, how can you do this?" "I'm in pain." Song Yunhuan sneered. She was still that selfish, spoiled idiot. Weiwei Bai's eyes filled with tears. She gasped, "Are you going to skin me, cut me up, drain me, or dismember me? You're clearly even willing to give a cat, but you won't treat me better." In the original owner's memory, Song Yunhuan often fed stray cats. He was kind and gentle. Song Yunhuan looked down at her, his black hair scattered. He ignored her words. Instead, she said softly, "Do you like big houses?" "She likes pretty clothes." "Do you like luxury cars and jewelry?" "I can give you whatever you want now. It's a good deal for you to draw some of your blood for my experiments." His voice was gloomy and bewitching, making people tremble and attracted. He had long seen through Wei Wei Bai's vanity. She had a pure face, but she only knew how to use it to deceive others. Wei Wei Bai fell silent. She wanted to say something several times, but in the end, she said in fear, "I won't die, right?" Song Yunhuan laughed mockingly. "I'll be careful. I won't let you die. After all, you're so precious." Immune to the virus, it would be very difficult to find another human after they died. Wei Wei Bai looked at him hesitantly. Gradually, her eyes became firm. "Song Yunhuan, can I date you again?" Song Yunhuan's expression hardened. He didn't even have a perfunctory smile anymore. "You have to think carefully. Is this really what you want?" Bai Weiwei suddenly angrily reached out and grabbed his clothes, saying loudly, "Damn it, when I decided to go out with you, it was equivalent to giving up a big house, a big car, and a big diamond. Why are you so inflexible? What do you have? Introverted, no future, poor, not knowing how to please me, and humiliating me. You. In the end." Her eyes were wet with anger. "You're just relying on the fact that I like you. How can you be so cruel to me?" To make it easier for you to read it next time, you can click the button at the bottom to record your reading record. Chapter 226. Song Yunhuan felt like he couldn't tell if her words were real or fake. She was easy to see through, but since the warehouse, it had been hard to figure out whether she was lying or telling the truth. Song Yunhuan found this situation unbearable. He wasn't introverted, but he saw through people's hypocrisy too easily. He didn't want to interact with people. Wei Wei Bai was just a toy to pass the time when he was bored. He clearly didn't have any feelings for her. Suddenly, he felt a tremor in his chest. He looked down. It was Wei Wei Bai, wiping her tears. She pursed her lips, as if she had been wronged. "I don't want to die. I really don't want to die. Afraid of death." Song Yunhuan's eyes went cold. She finally gritted her teeth and said in a trembling voice, "I want to live longer. If I die, I can't be with you. I don't want to, Song Yunhuan. I don't want to be separated from you." Did she really have the ability to lie? There was no flaw, no loophole, no. Suddenly, his lips felt warm. He froze. Wei Wei Bai kissed him. Song Yunhuan heard her heartbeat. It was so fast, it almost shook his chest. The temperature of Bai Weiwei's breath blew against his face, giving off a warm fragrance. Song Yunhuan's fingers slowly tightened. He grabbed the back of her neck, unable to suppress the restlessness in his heart. Ding. The male lead's favorability is -30. She didn't feel like she was lying at all. After the kiss, Wei Wei Bai reluctantly said, "This is the down payment. I agree to your experiment." She was so scared that her muscles were trembling. When she said this, it took almost all her courage. But she still agreed to the experiment. This woman was as stupid as always. Song Yunhuan looked at her coldly. His fingers couldn't help but relax. With his current strength, he could crush her neck with just a little more force. Wei Wei Bai didn't seem to know that she had been on the verge of death several times. She suddenly said shyly, "I'm hungry." Song Yunhuan realized that she was still a human. She needed to eat. She had been unconscious for 3 days. If he hadn't treated her wounds, she wouldn't have healed so quickly like a miracle. It was true that she hadn't eaten anything in the past 3 days. Wei Wei Bai asked softly, "Aren't you hungry?" The red in Song Yunhuan's eyes darkened, like he was about to devour someone. Did Wei Wei Bai not know that he had become a monster? Song Yunhuan's heart was filled with malice and a desire to destroy. He got up and gently carried her up. "I'm hungry too. Let's go eat." There was no food in the house. Song Yunhuan went straight to the supermarket. The streets outside were empty. There were broken-down cars parked in the middle of the road. No one was taking care of the garbage. There were flies everywhere. When the cold wind blew, there was a disgusting fishy smell in the air. Occasionally, there would be a few terrifying zombies wandering around the empty streets. When Wei Wei Bai saw this, she couldn't help but shrink into Song Yunhuan's arms in fear. Song Yunhuan looked at her coldly. "You're afraid of zombies?" Wei Wei Bai nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. "It's so scary. I thought I was going to be eaten by zombies." Song Yunhuan's malice was even more obvious. Didn't she know that she was in a zombie's arms? When they got to the supermarket, there was no one there. Song Yunhuan stuffed her into a supermarket cart. Then he pushed her towards the food section. Wei Wei Bai curled up her body and said to the system, I was wrong about Song Yunhuan. I thought he was a polite person. I didn't expect him to be like those uncultured people, pushing people with food carts. At https://www.sashu.com/www.sashu.com at https://www.sashu.com at https://m-sashu.com// to make it easier for you to read next time. You can click the Chapter 227. The system was lively again. You're probably food in his eyes. Up close, you look at pork chop with black pepper and coriander. From afar, you look at lamb chop with rosemary. You're such a beautiful dish. Wei Wei Bai, talking to a poison system was tiring. She wanted to change the system. Song Yunhuan pushed the cart, took a plate of fruit, and threw it to Wei Wei Bai. He also took chips, chocolate, and a bunch of small biscuits. Finally, he took milk tea. Wei Wei Bai was covered in snacks. She said helplessly, I want to eat. Why did he only take snacks? Song Yunhuan's voice was calm. Shouldn't girls like these? Wei Wei Bai, but snacks aren't filling. Song Yunhuan smiled. I'm afraid you won't be able to eat. Wei Wei Bai was so hungry that her chest was sticking to her back. She could eat anything. Song Yunhuan didn't make it too hard for her. They went to the meat section. The supermarket hadn't been abandoned for a few days, and the refrigerator in the freezer section wasn't broken. The backup power was still there, but it wouldn't last for more than a few days. He held the meat and vegetables in one hand, and carried a bag of several dozen caddies of rice as he pushed Bai Wei Wei out. By Wei Wei, they seemed to be square dancing uncles and aunties who ran into a supermarket discount. When they got to the street, Song Yunhuan suddenly seemed to see something, and stopped. Wei Wei Bai saw him put down the food, and then said to her in the cart, I'll eat first, then I'll take you back to cook. Wei Wei Bai said enthusiastically, Let's go home, I'll cook for you. System, drama queen, the host doesn't know how to cook. Song Yunhuan laughed. No, we have different recipes. Wei Wei Bai, it's okay, I can make your favorite. Song Yunhuan politely shook his head. No, my food is here. Wei Wei Bai suddenly heard the sound of cars. They were military vehicles, several of them coming from the street. A familiar voice sounded excitedly. Wei Wei, I found you. It was that big idiot Lin Xiao. Wei Wei Bai helplessly knocked on the system. Is the heartthrob effect still working? System, do you think the reward will disappear? I blocked you didn't understand. I'm ignoring you. Blocked. A pink caption floated up, like a princess imprisoned by a dragon. Helpless, beautiful. Bai Wei Wei couldn't wait to insert her own eyes. This spicy subtitle. Song Yunhuan turned cold. Your admirer? With that, he walked forward. The people in the car didn't see that he was a zombie. They only warned him. Kid, don't get too close, we might accidentally fire. He ignored her and began to roll up his sleeves and unbutton a few buttons on his collar. Before anyone could react, 4 or 5 people in the military vehicle at the front were dead. Their necks were cut open by Song Yunhuan's sharp nails. Blood gushed out. Song Yunhuan's hands were covered in warm blood. He licked it. It wasn't sweet, it tasted bad. His eyes were red. He looked at Lin Zhao's car. He didn't know why, but seeing Lin Zhao's admiring eyes made him angry. Lin Zhao's expression changed. Zombie? He stepped on the gas and yelled at Wei Wei Bai. Wait for me. I'll come back for you. Running for his life was more important. He drove away quickly. Wei Wei Bai, Song Yunhuan was about to chase when a car opened fire. It's a zombie. Kill him. But it was too late. Song Yunhuan strolled through the bullets, easily killing everyone. He licked the blood. It tasted bad. He stood in the pile of corpses and suddenly realized something. He looked at Wei Wei Bai. By the time Wei Wei Bai reacted, Song Yunhuan had already grabbed her hand. He bit down hard, swallowing the blood that gushed out. Sure enough, only your blood is sweet. His eyes were filled with excitement. The corners of his mouth were stained with blood. He looked like a demon who had found food. Ding. The male lead's favorability is -25. // the next time you open the bookshelf, you'll see it. If you like. Chapter 228. He finished and licked the blood off her wrist. His eyes were greedily looking at her. His lips were still stained with blood, and his handsome face gave people a chilling feeling. Wei Wei Bai had been too hungry, and now that she had lost blood, her head started to feel dizzy. Song Yunhuan didn't bite her flesh and said regretfully, "I can't eat you yet. You're a precious experiment material." Wei Wei Bai's face was pale, and she had trouble breathing. She swayed a few times and then fainted. Song Yunhuan felt her collapse, and the wound on her wrist started to bleed again. He was silent for a moment, then lowered his head and stuck out his tongue. He licked it a few times, and the wound started to heal. Soon, there was a white mark where he had bitten her. Wei Wei Bai had a bunch of messy dreams. She dreamed that she was eating good food, and then she heard the sound of a knife. She looked up. Oh my God, that damn zombie Song Yunhuan was holding a knife, about to eat her. She woke up in fright. When she woke up, she said to the system shakily, "The -50 from last time was better. At least they just cut people into pieces, but in this world, you have to eat the meat alive." The system patted her head sympathetically. "Not only do you eat the meat, but you don't give favorability. It's worse than not paying." When Wei Wei Bai heard this, she was even more shocked. She looked around. It was another old room. She smelled the aroma of food in the air. Song Yunhuan suddenly stood at the door. He wore a clean white shirt and black pants and looked at her silently. When Wei Wei Bai saw him, she thought of her nightmares. Song Yunhuan saw the fear in her eyes and laughed at himself. "Didn't you want to eat? Come and eat." Wei Wei Bai hesitated. In the end, she felt that even if she died, she had to eat her fill. Otherwise, it would be a waste. The table was filled with simple home-cooked dishes. The rice was fragrant, the vegetables were green, and the braised pig trotters were authentic. Wei Wei Bai asked, "You know how to cook?" Song Yunhuan filled her bowl with rice and answered casually, "I'm used to being alone. If I don't cook, I can only order takeout." Song Yunhuan's parents were divorced. Other than giving him a fixed living allowance, they were completely absent from his life. That was why he developed a rather dull personality. Wei Wei Bai lowered her head and looked at the food in front of her. She hesitated for a long time before slowly eating. It was delicious. However, Wei Wei Bai ate absent-mindedly. She slowly ate one mouthful of rice after another. But he didn't touch the food. Song Yunhuan gave her food. "Why aren't you eating? Is it not delicious?" Wei Wei Bai lowered her head, her bangs covering her eyes. She thought for a moment, then shook her head and said, "It's delicious." Song Yunhuan gave her more meat. "You're too thin, eat more." Wei Wei Bai, "Are you going to stew her if she gets fat?" Song Yunhuan gently gave her food and said, "I don't eat these things anymore. I've tried, but it's like chewing sand. It's hard to swallow." Wei Wei Bai stopped eating and didn't say anything. Song Yunhuan didn't seem to notice that something was wrong with her. He continued, "Now I prefer human meat. Men's meat is a bit more fishy, women's meat is a bit softer, children's meat." Wei Wei Bai finally couldn't take it anymore. She threw the chopsticks in her hand onto the table and rushed to the bathroom. She vomited everything she had just eaten into the wash basin. She was so disgusted that it tore her heart apart. When there was nothing left in her stomach, she washed the filth away. Her fingers trembled as she turned on the faucet to wash her face. After washing her face, she looked up at the mirror. In addition to her deathly pale face, she also saw Song Yunhuan standing behind her. He smiled darkly. "Not pretending to love me anymore? Wei Wei Bai, you're the one who turned me into this monster." To make it easier for you to read next time, you can click at the bottom to record this reading. Next time you open the bookshelf, you'll see it, if you like. Chapter 229. Wei Wei Bai suddenly turned around, the fear in her eyes not gone. She said, You're not a monster, you're not. Song Yunhuan suddenly closed in on her, forcing her into a corner. She could only lean against the sink. He lowered his head and smelled the fragrance on her body. What a beautiful and delicious aroma. Song Yunhuan chuckled. If I'm not a monster, then what am I? Other than my appearance, I'm no different from the rotting corpses outside. Bai Weiwei was both frightened and frightened. Her body couldn't stop trembling. Song Yunhuan knew that it was enough to scare her to this extent today. The mockery in his eyes deepened. He hated people like Weiwei, Bai, who liked to talk about their feelings so casually. She didn't value her feelings at all, and still dared to flirt with people. Didn't she know that some people's feelings couldn't be flirted with? Song Yunhuan gently reached out and touched her face, the malice in his eyes not lessening. Are you still hungry? Do you want to eat more? Weiwei Bai couldn't speak. Her expression was scared and sad. Song Yunhuan sighed. Looks like you don't want to eat. Then rest well. After all, our experiment hasn't started yet. With that, he casually walked out. On the table, the food was still warm. Song Yunhuan looked at the food and thought of her running to vomit after eating it. His expression suddenly became ferocious. It was disgusting to see him kill people. He also felt disgusted. When he found out that he had become a zombie, his hatred for Weiwei Bai had never stopped. Why was he the only one who was this kind of monster? Just as Song Yunhuan was about to kick the table to pieces, Weiwei Bai suddenly walked out of the bathroom. Her eyes were red. Her footsteps were slow but no longer staggered. She silently walked to the table, sat down, and picked up her chopsticks to continue eating. Song Yunhuan stood in place, watching her the whole time. There was a hint of confusion in his eyes. He thought that she would be so scared that she would hide in the bathroom and not dare to come out. Weiwei Bai's movements were slow, but her fingers were no longer shaking. She picked up the food herself and ate seriously. Song Yunhuan tilted his head and looked at her calmly. His eyes were like a scalpel, very rational as he analyzed her emotional changes. Weiwei Bai ate a lot. In the end, she couldn't eat anymore. She said softly, "Your food is delicious." Song Yunhuan said casually, "To me, it's not as good as human meat." Bai Weiwei's fingers couldn't help but clench into fists, as if she couldn't bear his words. Song Yunhuan continued calmly, "Maybe I should dismember a few people and put them in the fridge. When I'm hungry, I can cook them. Of course, fresh people are still the best." Bai Weiwei only felt a stirring in her stomach, and her face turned ugly. Song Yunhuan chuckled. "Didn't you think my cooking was good? Why don't I invite you to taste my food next time?" Bai Weiwei finally couldn't bear it. She suddenly stood up from her chair and slammed her hands on the table. "Enough, Song Yunhuan, you bastard." Weiwei Bai looked up, her eyes filled with tears. She gritted her teeth and said, "You're a bastard. You're the biggest bastard in the world." The calmness in Song Yunhuan's eyes cracked. Had she finally stopped pretending to like him? The tears in Weiwei Bai's eyes finally fell. She said in despair and helplessness, "Why did I fall for a bastard like you? You're already a monster. Why do I still like you? Woo-woo, I shouldn't have liked you so much." Song Yunhuan's heart didn't beat at all. He was caught off guard by her words. It trembled a little. Ding. The male lead's favorability is -20. Crossover system. Adonis, come here. /crossover system. Adonis, come here. / crossover system. Adonis, come here. Download crossover system. Adonis, come here. Mobile. To make it easier for you to read next time, you can click at the bottom to record this reading. Crossover system. Adonis, come here, comma. Chapter 230. Weiwei Bai lowered her head, unable to stop the tears in her eyes. She sobbed, "You're a monster. Why do I like you?" Like, even if he was like this, she still liked. He was a man-eating monster, a corpse without a heartbeat. This woman still dared to say that she liked him? Her words were helpless, soft, and delicate, but there was no hesitation in them at all. Song Yunhuan felt like something was about to break out of his heart. It was a beast that had been trapped in his heart for many years. A beast that had been locked up by him because he couldn't get his feelings. How could anyone like him in this world? His parents didn't want him. How could Wei Wei Bai say that she liked him so easily? I can't control my feelings. There are so many good choices, but I like you. Shut up. Song Yunhuan's eyes were red. His violent madness shattered the calmness and gentleness he pretended to be. Wei Wei Bai was frightened by his voice. She looked up, the tears in her eyes scared back. Song Yunhuan's voice was sharp. What right do you have to like me? Wei Wei Bai didn't know what to do. Song Yunhuan was like an enraged beast, harsh and cold. A woman like you, greedy for life, vain, small-breasted, brainless, irresponsible, cowardly, can't study, and messes up the way you do things. Stupid and stupid. What right do you have to say that you like me? Wei Wei Bai, Song Yunhuan's lips curled in a vicious smile. Like? You think I like you because of a piece of clothing? You wear it because it's new, and throw it in the trash after wearing it twice? Wei Wei Bai, and if you can't like me for a lifetime, then your love is worthless. After he finished speaking, he turned around and was about to leave. However, before he could take more than 2 steps, a soft hand had already grabbed his hand. His fingers froze. He had the urge to break the bones in her hand. Let go, he warned coldly. He knew that he was on the verge of collapse. The beast in his heart was roaring. They were only one line of defense away from being completely defeated. Wei Wei Bai did not let go. Instead, she retorted softly, You're wrong. It's not like that. Song Yunhuan's eyes turned violent. His voice was still cold. I told you to let go. Wei Wei Bai held back for a long time, her face red. She tried to say, Song Yunhuan, you're wrong. Song Yunhuan's back was to her. His expression had completely changed. His eyes were red, and the corners of his mouth were curved. It was frightening. What did I do wrong? Wei Wei Bai's voice came from behind him, sweet and firm. It's not even a lifetime yet. How can you be so sure that I won't like you for a lifetime? How could there be a woman? How could he say something so irresponsible? Song Yunhuan slowly turned around, his back to the light, a frightening gloom on his face. He looked at her face. It was beautiful and delicate, with the warmth of a human and the unique fragrance of a woman. She was supposed to have an angelic face, but she kept doing things to seduce him, just like a demon. Wei Wei Bai suddenly couldn't stand still. There was a huge pressure in the air. Pong! The lights on the wall burst. The glass on the window started to shatter. Song Yunhuan stood, letting his powerful force wreak havoc everywhere. Wei Wei Bai, do you know what will happen if you seduce someone you shouldn't? Wei Wei Bai was at a loss. Before she could ask, her lips were captured by the man in front of her. Ding! The male lead's affection is at -10. Download the at https://m.com button at the bottom to record your reading record. Next time you open the bookshelf, you'll see it, if you like. Chapter 231. By Wei Wei. This favorability skyrocketed. I'm overjoyed. The next moment, she cried out in pain. The other party had bitten her lip. She had no time to dodge. His tongue had completely invaded her lips. His strength was terrifyingly strong. He sucked on the tip of her tongue, as if he was going to draw blood. Wei Wei Bai couldn't help but resist. He grabbed her arm with one hand, easily suppressing all her violent struggles. This kiss, the taste of blood, the violent impulse, and a kind of hatred, all mixed together. There was no sweetness at all. There was no feeling of love. When Bai Weiwei was kissed by him, she felt as if he had bitten off her tongue. Just before she couldn't breathe, he finally let her go. Okay, this is the deposit. Song Yunhuan's mouth was stained with blood, but he smiled gently. Weiwei Bai was scared speechless by his devilish appearance. Song Yunhuan saw the wound on her lip. He lowered his head and licked it. The wound healed in an instant. Weiwei Bai touched her lip in confusion. She calculated many things in her mind, but she didn't show it on the surface. She just looked confused. Deposit? Song Yunhuan took her hand and pulled her to another room. The deposit for the experiment. When he opened the door, they went down to the basement. There were bottles and jars in the basement and piles of scientific equipment. Wei Wei Bai could see at a glance that this was an extremely professional laboratory. She didn't have any chance to object. Song Yunhuan had already tied her to the white single bed. Wei Wei Bai finally asked, Song Yunhuan, what are you doing? Song Yunhuan put on his glasses and gloves and began to disinfect the needle. When he heard Wei Wei Bai's words, he was silent. Then he turned, walked to her side, and leaned over to look at her. The shadow on his face gave off an eerie feeling. I want to become a human. Ding! Congratulations to the host for activating the side quest. Please complete the quest to turn Song Yunhuan into a human. Reject, 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 reject. This old lady rejects. Before the system could finish speaking, it was interrupted by Wei Wei Bai. By Wei Wei, who will take on the 5 Thunder Bombardment of the Sky side quest? Am I crazy? The system replied, not every side mission is like being struck by lightning. Wei Wei Bai, what's the punishment for failing this mission? The system said, 5 Thunderstrike from heaven. Wei Wei Bai waved her hand. Screw you. Get lost. Goodbye. Never again. The system hurriedly tried to salvage the situation. But this time, after you fail, the one to be punished is not you, but me. Wei Wei Bai immediately said, I accept. The system was heartbreaking. Screw you. I can't live like this anymore. After Song Yunhuan finished speaking, he didn't wait for her reaction and directly inserted the needle into her arm. Wei Wei Bai felt as if he had injected something into her body. Soon, she knew why he wanted to tie her up. The pain hit her. Song Yunhuan stood by the bed expressionlessly, filling in a form to see how she would react. This time, the pain left as quickly as it came. Song Yunhuan wasn't satisfied. He inserted another needle into Wei Wei Bai's arm. Wei Wei Bai hit the system. I've decided. I'm going to torture this guy to death. The system said, do you want a life guarantee? Buy one get one free? Wei Wei Bai, robbing me while I'm down, stealing my life points again. She fiercely said to the system, Bai. She made the right decision, because this time, the pain lasted for a long time. Although she couldn't feel the pain, her body's instinctive reaction wouldn't stop. The download the at https://m/sashu. Comto make it easier for you to read next time. You can click the button at the bottom to record your reading record. Chapter 232. Under the intense pain, her body began to convulse. Her entire face was deathly pale. This was the body's feedback after the pain reached its limit. Song Yunhuan watched coldly from the side. She was immune to the zombie virus, so he wanted to study her body to see if he could make a vaccine against it, or even turn a conscious zombie like him into a human. Song Yunhuan actually had no confidence in Wei Wei Bai's ability to endure. It was obvious that she couldn't take pain. After 1 or 2 hits, she'd probably cry and beg for mercy. However, seconds and minutes passed by at that time. Even when she was in so much pain that she started to sweat and moan, she didn't stop. Since when did this woman become so resistant to death? Even the system couldn't stand it. Host, I think you're going in the wrong direction. The male lead doesn't like pretentious, delicate, and green women. With a face full of pain, Bai Wei Wei, who couldn't feel the pain at all, rolled her eyes at the system. Otherwise, what do you want me to do? A man like Song Yunhuan is super intelligent. He's a Nobel Prize-winning scientist in peaceful times. This kind of man, if your personality is a little different from before, he'll be able to tell. Of course, she also knew that the previous Bai Wei Wei was pretentious, vain, and afraid of death. She also had a vicious heart. Apart from her face, there was nothing likable about her. But what could she do? She was desperate. The system didn't say that she had to have the same personality as the original owner. But Song Yunhuan wasn't stupid. If she changed her personality as soon as she came, was she going to treat him like an idiot? She also wanted to immediately become kind, beautiful, understanding, and likable. But Song Yunhuan saw through Wei Wei Bai's personality. If she changed her personality, it was obvious that there was a problem. She could only do her best to erase the viciousness in her heart and hold on to the fact that she liked him. That was the only way she could survive. The system said, I understand the logic, but I can't stop thinking about how you're confessing your love in the manga. Wei Wei Bai was shocked. You're not using my life points to buy eye drops, are you? Song Yunhuan looked at the time. Wei Wei Bai's patience had far exceeded his expectations. He suddenly heard Wei Wei Bai, who was in so much pain that she was delirious, whispering something. Song Yunhuan hesitated, then lowered his head to listen. But he heard her, trembling in pain. She kept muttering, Song Yunhuan, Song Yunhuan, Song Yunhuan. It was as if this name was her only salvation. It was the faith that made her endure this hellish agony. How could someone endure to such an extent just because they liked someone? Song Yunhuan's pin trembled a few times. His calm expression cracked. He couldn't understand her anymore. He was clearly still as weak and useless as before. Why had it exceeded his calculations time and time again? Suddenly, Wei Wei Bai looked up as if she was looking for something. She was at a loss. She was in so much pain that she had lost her rationality. Then, she finally saw the person she wanted to see, and her eyes lit up. Song Yunhuan. Her voice was hoarse and muddy, as if she was struggling for her life. Song Yunhuan looked at her indifferently, but he couldn't help but tighten his grip on the pin. Song Yunhuan. Her voice was very weak, and she was even panicking. She didn't seem to be able to hear his answer. She was scared. Song Yunhuan didn't know what he was thinking. He clearly didn't want to pay attention to her, but he couldn't help but make a cold sound. The button at the bottom to record your reading record. Chapter 233. Wei Wei Bai was in so much pain that she couldn't hear. She kept calling, Song Yunhuan? Yes. She heard it, smiled, and then closed her eyes and fell asleep. People had limits. When the pain reached a certain point, they would faint. But his drug could keep tormenting her. After a while, she would wake up. Sure enough, Bai Weiwei soon woke up from the pain. She suddenly opened her eyes, but her vision was unfocused. A scream came out of her throat, broken and weak. Song Yunhuan frowned. He wanted to find out where Wei Wei Bai's limit was. So if she didn't beg for mercy, he wouldn't stop until she died from the pain. This was important data for his future experiments. But she was in so much pain that she wanted to die. Why was she still holding on? Wei Wei Bai woke up from the pain. Her hair was soaked with sweat, and her face was pale. She couldn't take it anymore, and started crying. Her sobs were soft and powerless. Her broken sobs were hard to bear. Song Yunhuan suddenly had the urge to stop the experiment. The fact that she could hold on to this point was far beyond his expectations. Wei Wei Bai trembled in pain. She looked at Song Yunhuan, as if begging for something. Song Yunhuan let out a sigh of relief. She finally knew how to beg for mercy. He lowered his head, about to ask her if she wanted to stop the experiment. Wei Wei Bai opened her mouth. Song Yunhuan, can you kiss me again? She spoke too softly. If it wasn't for the fact that he could hear her soft voice, he wouldn't have been able to hear her muffled words. She couldn't focus her eyes. She used the last of her strength to speak, her voice so soft that it was almost inaudible. I'm in so much pain. You only kissed me once. I'm at a disadvantage. This sentence was full of a little girl's finesse and willfulness. But for the first time, he didn't hate her slightly pretentious request. Song Yunhuan didn't know why, but his mood was uncomfortable. He slowly lowered his head, as if to relieve this discomfort, and planted a gentle kiss on her lips. It was like giving alms. Wei Wei Bai felt his kiss, and her expression relaxed. She could continue to endure the pain. She no longer had the strength to speak. Even if he wanted to beg for mercy, he couldn't. Song Yunhuan looked at her, but he could no longer calm down and treat her as an experiment subject. Every broken groan of pain, every violent tremor of her muscles, every chattering of her teeth, told him that she was in pain. The handwriting on the tip of his pen started to become messy. The form he was recording changed from cold data to Wei Wei Bai's pale face. Wei Wei Bai suddenly opened her mouth, but he couldn't shout anything. But Song Yunhuan could read lips. He saw her say, Song Yunhuan, Song Yunhuan, Song Yunhuan, Song Yunhuan. Was he the only one in this woman's mind? Song Yunhuan pinched his fingers hard. The pen in his hand broke. The ink in the fountain pen dyed the paper black. He said harshly, Idiot, useless woman. At this point, what was the point of calling him? He was the one who had tortured her to this point. Song Yunhuan threw away the record in his hand, then took out another syringe and injected it into her. This was the thing that would relieve her pain. After the injection, her brows quickly relaxed. Song Yunhuan undid the restraints on her hands and feet. He saw that she had dug her nails into her palms because of the struggle, and her hands were covered in blood. He stared blankly for a few seconds, then lowered his head and licked her wounds, healing them. Then he picked her up from the bed. She seemed to feel his movements and naturally rested her head on his chest, like she was relying on the person closest to her. Song Yunhuan paused. He didn't know why, but his heart softened. He didn't throw her away, but just held her like this. Ding. The male lead's favorability is -5. / to TXT. Chapter 234. When Wei Wei Bai woke up, she thought she had died. She cursed Song Yunhuan's zombie 10,000 times in her heart. Then she looked up and saw Song Yunhuan's zombie, sitting next to her, reading a book. Song Yunhuan was dressed neatly, and his hair was combed neatly. He looked like a dog. Wei Wei Bai stared at him for a few seconds, then suddenly smiled. I'm not dead yet. Song Yunhuan paused in his reading and looked up. His voice was faint. Your body should be back to normal. Let's go out. Wei Wei Bai moved her body and found that she was in good condition. At least there was no back pain or leg cramps. Wei Wei Bai sat up in bed. She was about to ask where they were going. Song Yunhuan had already taken out a dress. Put this on. Wei Wei Bai looked at the dress in his hand and frowned. What for? Song Yunhuan stared at her quietly. He didn't answer, just said, put it on. Wei Wei Bai looked at the gorgeous dress. The pink, romantic color of a young girl. The fluffy, flower-like hem of the dress. The small tassels hanging from countless little bows. The lace cuffs. The dress was so gorgeous that it glowed. This kind of girly to two-dimensional dress made by Wei Wei unable to accept it for a while. The system sighed. Song Yunhuan is so straight. Only a straight guy would choose this kind of dress. Wei Wei Bai coughed up blood. Is this a straight guy's taste? Don't make a straight guy a scapegoat. Song Yunhuan saw her resistance and walked over to the bed. I'll change it for you. Bai Wei Wei immediately blushed, her watery eyes flashing. She stretched out her small fist and punched him hard in the chest. You're so shameless. Is a girl's body something you should look at? This coquettish voice simply caused goosebumps to rise on people's skin. Song Yunhuan and the system. Wei Wei Bai snatched the dress and hit him a few more times. You're so annoying. Don't look at me. Song Yunhuan. I'm going out. After he left, the system looked at Wei Wei Bai, who was changing her clothes. Host, what happened to you? Are you poisoned? The sweet smile on Wei Wei Bai's face instantly turned into a sinister sneer. Look at this dress. Don't you know what kind of woman Song Yunhuan likes? The system looked at the dress in her hand, indicating that it could not keep up with the host's brain speed. Wei Wei Bai pulled up the zipper of the dress, gritting her teeth. Aesthetics determine preferences. Song Yunhuan chose this dress. It would be strange if he didn't like women who act like a spoiled child. How could a normal person choose such a scary shade of pink? After Song Yunhuan left, he reached out and touched his chest. It didn't hurt. It was like scratching an itch. He calmed down and continued to sit on the sofa, waiting. When he heard the door open, he looked up and saw Wei Wei Bai in a pink lowly dress. Her skin was very white, her eyes were clear, and her long brown hair was in a high ponytail. She looked like one of those anime girls in his heart. He had agreed to go out with her. It was because she looked like a manga girl. Of course, after a few days of dating, he found out that she was spoiled, and stupid. He immediately lost interest. Song Yunhuan got up and opened the door. Let's go. Wei Wei Bai suddenly grabbed his clothes. Where are we going? Song Yunhuan wasn't going to feed her to the zombies, was he? She had to ask first before coming up with a plan. Song Yunhuan was silent for a moment before looking down at her. His voice was still cold. A date. And read the full article at https://www.sashu. Read the full article at https://www.sashu.com button at the bottom to record your reading record. Chapter 235. The Empty Streets. The big city had become a cold steel ruin. The zombies wandering in the distance sensed Song Yunhwan's approach and immediately scattered. They didn't have a mind of their own, only a survival instinct. Every time Song Yunhwan walked on the streets, their survival instinct would scream. This was a terrifying and powerful existence, like an emperor. He could easily destroy them. The cold wind blew, and a newspaper was stuck to Wei Wei Bai's face. Wei Wei Bai pulled the newspaper down with a face full of despair. Why was she wandering around the streets with this guy Song Yunhwan? Was this a date? There were no romantic surprises. There were plenty of horror, pessimism, and despair. Song Yunhwan stopped halfway and looked back at her. You don't like walking with me? Wei Wei Bai was expressionless. I like it very much. Song Yunhwan. He thought for a while, then asked, what do you need to do on a date? Wei Wei Bai. Watch a movie. Song Yunhwan. There's no electricity, but I can fix it. It'll take a few days. Wei Wei Bai. Then drink coffee. Song Yunhwan. The waiters in the coffee shop have all become zombies. Wei Wei Bai. Go shopping. Song Yunhwan. Aren't we shopping? Wei Wei Bai. I have nothing to say to you. Song Yunhwan thought for a moment, then turned to leave. I think of a place to go on a date. As soon as he finished speaking, Wei Wei Bai grabbed his hand. Wei Wei Bai looked up at him seriously. Song Yunhwan, don't you know you have to hold hands on a date? Song Yunhwan, I don't know. But he didn't shake off her hand. After all, he promised to do the experiment, so they had to go out. So doing the things they had to do in a relationship counted as fulfilling his promise. Song Yunhwan thought very calmly. Amusement park. Wei Wei Bai looked at Song Yunhwan with a poker face. They sat on the wooden horse that wouldn't move, staring at each other. Song Yunhwan called it a date, but it was more like a mission. It was always better to finish it quickly. But this mission had been completed too carelessly. He had let down Wei Wei Bai, who had suffered so much. He thought for a moment before saying to Wei Wei Bai, wait for me. With that, he left. Wei Wei Bai sighed. This plane is like a hell on earth. This increase in favorability, she was sorry that she had to suffer so much. The system said earnestly, it's a zombie love affair. Of course it's difficult. Wei Wei Bai, suddenly, a hoarse grinding sound came from somewhere. Following that, all sorts of sounds could be heard. The lights in the amusement park were turned on one by one. Soon, the wooden horse began to spin. The Ferris wheel began to move. The entire empty amusement park began to operate. After Song Yunhwan turned on the park's backup power, he came back to see Wei Wei Bai sitting sideways on the slowly turning wooden horse. She looked up at the sky, and the lights gave her an unreal halo. Too beautiful to be real. Song Yunhwan paused, the red light in his eyes thickening. Of course, it quickly disappeared. He was about to walk over as if nothing had happened. Suddenly, Wei Wei Bai turned to look at him. She shouted, Song Yunhwan. She seemed to like calling him by his name. Wei Wei Bai jumped off the wooden horse, her skirt flying up. Then she ran in front of him and hugged him. Song Yunhwan didn't understand her overreaction. Was she happy that the amusement park was open? Wei Wei Bai said cheerfully, how did you know? I like the amusement park. He didn't know. // the. Chapter 236. Just because they couldn't go to the coffee shop, the movie theater had no electricity, and shopping was boring, they chose the amusement park? Wei Wei Bai let go of him and lowered her head, embarrassed. Did you have a crush on me before? Song Yunhwan was expressionless. You confessed. Which I did she see him having a crush on her? A crush on her? Ha, his taste wasn't that bad. Wei Wei Bai walked forward proudly. If you didn't have a crush on me, how did you know I like the amusement park the most? Song Yunhwan. He didn't have a place to date, so he just randomly chose. Wei Wei Bai suddenly turned her head, smiling. I'm so happy. Song Yunhwan wanted to mock her, but for some reason, he swallowed back his words. Wei Wei Bai ran to the Ferris wheel. Let's sit here. Song Yunhuan sat down with a bored expression. When they reached the highest point of the Ferris wheel, Wei Wei Bai looked outside with bright eyes. Song Yunhuan, what do you see? Song Yunhuan, ruins, zombies, vultures. Wei Wei Bai's smile froze. She quickly interrupted him. Look at the sky. Song Yunhuan looked up at the sky. It was gray and ugly. Bai Weiwei's voice was gentle. A long, long time ago, I once heard others say that couples sitting on the Ferris wheel were like sitting in the sky. Then slowly, the two people walked through the sky together, walked through the 4 seasons together, walked through a lifetime together. Her voice didn't have that deliberately coquettish tone. It didn't have the usual sweet smile that seemed to have been trained. Instead, there was some gentleness and sadness. Wei Wei Bai looked outside, lost in her memories. My parents also fell in love on the Ferris wheel. Song Yunhuan was bored, but he still said, "Oh, not bad." Wei Wei Bai smiled. Yeah, it was romantic, but my dad died and my mom abandoned me. Song Yunhuan. Wei Wei Bai gestured with her hand. You know what? I was only 4 years old. My mom took me to the amusement park. She told me to wait for her, but in the end, I became a member of the orphanage. Later, I was adopted, but after they had their own children, I fell out of favor. I even ate leftovers and wore clothes that people didn't want. For a while, I thought I would starve to death. Speaking of this, Bai Weiwei smiled sadly. I know you look down on me. I'm materialistic and hypocritical. I always like to use my appearance to cheat men. I even think about marrying a rich man every day. He didn't know how much she had suffered. Bai Weiwei laughed at herself. Of course I know I'm ugly like this, but you've never been hungry. You don't know how I feel. I'm so scared. What's wrong with wanting to live a good life? Song Yunhuan lowered his eyes and asked calmly, Then why did you approach me? He wasn't supposed to be her target. Wei Wei Bai was silent for a long time before saying softly, I made a bet with my roommate to see if I could get you. Song Yunhuan's eyes turned cold. Oh. Wei Wei Bai's voice was weaker, but I've been paying attention to you for a long time. Your parents are divorced, and you're alone. But you never had to be like me, pretending to be sweet and kind to please others. You're a loner, and your grades are good. I envy you. Song Yunhuan. Envy? Wei Wei Bai finally looked up at him, her eyes shining with worship. Yeah, you're different from me. You're amazing. You fix your computer, and all the professors say you're excellent. You can ignore people if you want to. Song Yunhuan. What's there to be envious of? Wasn't he a loner in other people's eyes? Wei Wei Bai smiled sweetly. I can't. I have to carefully please others to survive. Song Yunhuan had never seen Wei Wei Bai look so inferior. So, he heard her say, I've liked you for a long time. To make it easier for you to read next time, you can click at the bottom to record this reading. Next time you open the bookshelf, you'll see it, if you like. Chapter 237. It's been a long time. This sentence made Song Yunhuan pause. After Bai Weiwei finished speaking, she fell silent. The smile at the corner of her mouth was somewhat bitter, but she was counting in her heart. 3, 2, 1. Ding. The male lead's favorability has increased to -2. Weiwei Bai. What the hell? Flips table. And you only increased favorability by 3 points? This damn zombie doesn't know how to feel. Ding. The male lead's favorability has increased to 0. Wei Wei Bai let out a sigh of relief. 0 was good. Her expectations were getting lower and lower. Ding. The male lead's favorability has increased to 5. Wei Wei Bai. So, Song Yunhuan is actually a procrastinator? Favorability can be divided into multiple increments? Song Yunhuan's eyes were deep. There was no sign of favorability increasing at all. His mind was spinning. When did she start liking him? He was very sensitive to the gazes of the people around him. If she peeked at him, he would definitely notice. So she had a crush on him? Did she have a crush on him because of his photos? Never peeking at him from around him? Song Yunhuan's mind was in a mess. Even his heart was in a mess. He looked sideways at Wei Wei Bai and saw that she was looking out of the Ferris wheel window. The girl's long hair was tied up, hanging over her shoulders. Her white neck was clean and beautiful. Her figure was thin, and there was worry in her brows. Her eyelashes were slightly lowered, and her eyes were clear. She looked like a girl from a comic. Song Yunhuan was stunned for a moment. Wei Wei Bai's expression didn't change, but she had already complained to the system 10,000 times. What's with those pink bubble captions? She's like the most beautiful character in a manga. She's like the purest model in a figurine. She's like the most likable girl in an anime. The curve of her long hair is like the notes of youth. Her eyes are as clear as a stream, and her slender figure flutters in the wind. Wei Wei Bai, what's the description of a Chinibu? My titanium alloy eyes are going blind. The system said, affinity above 0. Activate heartthrob aura. This is the aura heartthrob aura created for you. Wei Wei Bai, it feels different from the cannon fodder forest. The system said, 10,000 people have 10,000 likes and dislikes. Cannon fodder likes the Mary Sue type, and Song Yunhuan likes the 2D type. Wei Wei Bai, quick, turn off the subtitles. Don't make me laugh. If she laughed, Song Yunhuan would probably cook her. The system said regretfully, there are so many descriptions of women's hearts. I want to see it too. Let me see it. Let me see it. Wei Wei Bai spat out a mouthful of blood. The system was an idiot. Starting from this plane, its style of speaking was simply challenging the limits of moral integrity. He waited for the subtitles to end. Bai Weiwei felt that she had finally come back to life. Even if Song Yunhuan's favorability increased, he didn't show it. However, Weiwei Bai noticed that he would glance at her strangely from time to time. That gaze, that furtive gaze. Why did it seem like he was stalking a pervert? Weiwei Bai shivered inwardly, but her favorability didn't increase. Maybe the heartthrob aura just made her more pleasing to the eye. It didn't have the effect of confusing people. So what was the use of this useless reward? Weiwei Bai and Song Yunhuan finished walking around the amusement park and walked out. Her hands were behind her back, and her steps were much more cheerful. Song Yunhuan followed behind her, watching the way she walked, and the way her back was elongated by the setting sun. It felt like another heart-stirring scene from the manga had been perfectly reenacted. He thought that the manga scenes he liked would never appear in real life. He didn't think that he would see it on her. Ding! The male lead's favorability has increased to 6. For the https://www.sashu.com/ for the full article, https://www.sashu.com for the full article, https://www.sashu.com for the full article, https://m.sashu.com. The Chapter 238. Bai Weiwei had dead fish eyes. This favorability increase was so stingy that it reached the navel. She waited for a while before slowing down. In the end, her footsteps were a bit sluggish. Suddenly, her hand was held by another hand. It felt cold. She turned her head and saw that it was Song Yunhuan holding her hand. You have to hold hands on a date? Bai Weiwei showed a brilliant smile. She smiled and smiled, but in the end, she couldn't smile anymore. Song Yunhuan, do you want to kill me? Song Yunhuan frowned. Why do you think so? Weiwei Bai said angrily, don't prisoners on death row all have a full meal? You suddenly brought me on a date, brought me to the amusement park, held my hand, and treated me so well. Isn't it because people will die in the experiment? So you pity me so that I can't fulfill my wish of going on a date with you before I die? Song Yunhuan said calmly, I thought your wish was to live a good life, wear beautiful clothes and charm all the men. It had to be said that he saw through Weiwei Bai's character. Weiwei Bai nodded without changing her expression. Yes, that's my wish. Song Yunhuan, Weiwei Bai, but if I could go on a date with you, I'd be willing to trade that for it. Song Yunhuan snorted. But when he thought of how she wouldn't beg for mercy in the face of such a cruel experiment, she'd only called his name when the pain had exceeded her limits. He couldn't mock her, except that he liked her. He couldn't think of a better reason to explain why Weiwei Bai was a woman who was afraid of death and couldn't take hardship. She couldn't stand the torture. Song Yunhuan's heart softened. Ding! The male lead's favorability has increased to 7. Wei Bai, just don't increase the favorability. If he had the face to be so stingy, she wouldn't have the face to look. When they got home, Song Yunhuan said, "Are you hungry?" Wei Bai's face paled. Not hungry. Song Yunhuan knew her body better than she did. The human body was so fragile. If she didn't eat regularly, her stomach would have problems within 2 days. He went to make dinner. When the meal was ready, it looked, smelled, and tasted good. Wei Bai ate while Song Yunhuan sat in front of her and watched. He couldn't eat when he saw her. Wei Bai slagged him. There's something wrong with his eyes. The system said, that's right. Zombies look at humans like that, just like how you look at Dongpo pork. By Wei, no, there's something deeper in his eyes. I always feel like he's looking at others through me. Song Yunhuan. Even the way she eats is becoming more and more like the manga girl he likes. Ding. The male leads favorability. 8. By Wei and the system. This increase in favorability was not only baffling, but it was also very petty. After dinner, Song Yunhuan took A's bed. Wei Bai was about to lie on the operating bed. Song Yunhuan suddenly said, "Change clothes." Wei Bai thought about it. That was true. This pink dress wasn't suitable for experiments. Song Yunhuan took out a pure white princess dress with lace edges and little heart patterns. It was layered with white gauze. Here, change into this. Wei Bai, do you still want a proper guide? Where's the apocalypse? Where's the zombies? This was a guide for perverted otakus. Wei Bai changed into the dress with a pale face. Then she lay on the bed like a corpse. Song Yunhuan looked at her silently, a strange light in his eyes. Then he walked away with a camera in his hand. Bai Wei, who was lying on the bed, wearing a snow-white princess dress, started snapping photos. / to make it easier for you to read next time, you can click at the bottom to record this reading. Chapter 239. Wei Bai. After taking the picture, Song Yunhuan carefully took the camera and put it away. Wei Bai's face was haggard. Let me go to heaven in peace. This goal makes my heart tired. System. Goodbye, host. Have a safe trip. Wei Bai. Is there still a genuine friendship between the host and the system? It's worse than plastic sisters. After taking the picture, Song Yunhuan remembered what he had to do. He switched to another drug. This is a larger dose of the zombie virus. Song Yunhuan put on his glasses, looking like a perverted gentleman. Wei Bai's face paled. Song Yunhuan didn't soften. I want to know, how much of the zombie virus will make you mutate? He grabbed her arm and was about to insert the needle. Wei Bai suddenly asked, Song Yunhuan, what if I become a zombie? Song Yunhuan thought for a moment before replying, then you'll be a failed experiment. Wei Bai asked, if I become a zombie, what will you do with me? Song Yunhuan was very straightforward. Kill you. Wei Bai, why do you have to be so sincere between people? Isn't it better to say a few comforting lies? Song Yunhuan inserted a needle into Wei Bai's arm. System. Buy one get one free life guarantee. You've already spent one, so the remaining one is free. Do you want to use it? Wei Bai was about to say yes, when her face suddenly turned red. Next time. System. The host is so fearless. Admirable. Bai Wei only felt that there was an inexplicable heat rolling in her body. It didn't hurt, but it was strange. She couldn't help but moan. His body trembled as well. A numb feeling seeped through her bones. Was this the zombie virus? Song Yunhuan didn't take the wrong medicine, did he? Wei Bai looked up and couldn't help but glare at him. She found Song Yunhuan standing by the bed, staring at her. Although his face was expressionless, his eyes were lifeless. Wei Bai said, there's something wrong with his eyes. What did he see? The system said, unseal subtitles. Her eyes were misty, her eyelashes were trembling, and her soft hands were tied helplessly like a bird without wings. Under the white dress, her snow-white skin was flushed red. Her clean and round toes were curled up because of the scorching pleasure. She gasped and moaned as if she had been ravaged. Wei Bai, stop, stop, stop. Block, block, block. I'm blind, blind, blind. The system watched with relish. I haven't seen such good minced meat in a long time. Wei Wei Bai, how can this third-rate writing satisfy you? How thirsty are you? After the shield, Wei Wei Bai looked at Song Yunhuan and saw that his face was red. Her whole body trembled as the heat in her body intensified. Wei Wei Bai couldn't help but gasp again. Song Yunhuan clenched his fists. Behind his glasses, his eyes were especially red. Wei Wei Bai's face changed, but she couldn't stop the change in her body. Because of the heat, her forehead was covered in sweat. Song Yunhuan's eyes changed. He took a deep breath and looked away. But he didn't walk away. Instead, he stood stiffly by the bed. Wei Wei Bai felt that something was wrong. She said, Song Yunhuan, I'm very hot. The voice that came out of her mouth was sweet and mellow, full of fanciful gasps. Song Yunhuan slowly turned his head. He saw that Wei Wei Bai's hair was messy and her face was red. It was as sexy as those manga's positions he had seen in comics. Ding! The male lead's favorability has increased to 12. The favorability went up by 4 points. Wei Wei Bai wasn't happy at all, because the favorability went up at this time. It wasn't safe at all. Chapter 240. You can search Transmigration System. Prince Charming, come to search book, www.sashu.com. In Baidu to find the Wei Wei Bai face-bombed. You're so mushy, system. I'm about to be shocked by your international level performance. The system returned to its expressionless face. You finally understand how I feel when I'm being mushy by your universal level performance in this plane. Wei Wei Bai sighed. I died so miserably. The system was overjoyed. My condolences. Wei Wei Bai, what kind of grudge did she have with the system? Because of Bai Wei Wei's high fever, Song Yunhuan wasn't crazy enough to let her continue the experiment. He just took some of her blood, saying that he wanted to study it. But what was with Song Yunhuan's covetous look when he took her blood? Wei Wei Bai shivered. When she was feeling better, Song Yunhuan said, Where do you want to go on a date this time? Wei Wei Bai looked at him, confused. Song Yunhuan explained patiently, I promised you that if you did the experiment, I'd go on a date with you. So every time you get through an experiment, I'll go on a date with you. Wei Wei Bai felt that he really did have a spirit of a contract. She smiled sweetly. Song Yunhuan, you're so nice. Song Yunhuan looked at the smile on her face. Her eyes were curved, and the smile was just right. He suddenly said, Don't smile like that. Wei Wei Bai maintained her smile, confused. Song Yunhuan said coldly, very fake. The smile that was just right didn't feel happy at all. Wei Wei Bai's smile faded. She lowered her head, her bangs covering her eyes. Her whole body was gloomy. Song Yunhuan didn't know why, but he could feel that she was surrounded by a sad atmosphere. Just as he was about to say something indifferently, Wei Wei Bai finally said, I don't know how to smile like that. Song Yunhuan remembered that she was used to pleasing people. He said, Then forget it. Smile all you want. Wei Wei Bai forced a smile. Then let's go on a date. Song Yunhuan nodded. He took out an orange-pink tutu dress, with a golden belt tied into a large bow. It was full of dreamy colors. Put it on. Wei Wei Bai, after putting on the dress, Wei Wei Bai looked like she was on strike. She had been through so many planes, and this was the first time she found that going on strike was actually quite good. At least he didn't have to face a psychopath like Song Yunhuan. She was mentally exhausted, physically exhausted, and morally exhausted. The apocalyptic city had a kind of gray and decadent decay. Wei Wei Bai followed Song Yunhuan to school. The location was chosen by Wei Wei Bai, and Song Yunhuan followed indifferently. Suddenly, Wei Wei Bai quickened her pace and her skirt fluttered in the wind. Song Yunhuan followed unhurriedly. Wei Wei Bai ran to the field where the new students gathered when they first entered the school. She looked back at Song Yunhuan excitedly. Do you know where you were when I first saw you? Song Yunhuan wasn't interested. I don't know. Wei Wei Bai pointed at the stage and said, Over there, over there. At that time, you represented the freshmen to give a speech because you were the top scorer in the college entrance examination. Song Yunhuan remembered that he had given a speech on stage. Wei Wei Bai's eyes were very bright. She didn't smile, but there was a sense of happiness in her eyes. At that time, I thought that the top scorer of the college entrance examination was amazing. If it were me, I would probably never be able to become the top scorer in the college entrance exam. Song Yunhwan thought of the old her and nodded honestly. You really don't have a way. Wei Wei Bai nodded, embarrassed. I know. I was wondering why you chose this university. After all, it's not the best. Song Yunhwan said honestly, close to home. Wei Wei Bai. Transmigration system. Adonis, come here. / transmigration system. Adonis, come here. / transmigration system. Adonis, come here. Transmigration system. Adonis, come here. Com / to make it easier for you to read next time, you can click the transmigration system. Adonis, come here, comma. Chapter 241. You can search Transmigration System. Prince Charming, come to search book, www.sashu.com. In Baidu to find the. How could they talk about this? Wei Wei Bai encouraged herself again and ran to the library. I know you like the library the most. Every time I come to the library, I always sit in your seat. Song Yunhwan, the library is a public place. I don't have a seat. Wei Wei Bai clenched her teeth. Where you're used to sitting. Song Yunhwan, I'm more used to reading standing up. Wei Wei Bai knocked on the system. Slagstem, I'm not doing this anymore. Is this guy a zombie? He's a diamond in a manure pit. Even if he's shining, he's still disgusting. The system comforted her. Don't. You can put on gloves and fish him out of the manure pit. He can still be used after washing. Diamonds are expensive. Wei Wei Bai, buff dead. Wei Wei Bai ran to the playground. She felt like if she didn't get one more point of affection, she'd go on strike for a day. She saw the basketball court. She took a deep breath and slowed down. Song Yunhwan, do you know when I started liking you? Song Yunhwan looked at her. She was looking at the basketball court, her eyelashes slightly down, her face gentle. At that time, the members of the basketball club were beaten by the basketball team of another school. Then you joined. I saw you shoot a lot of three-pointers. At that time, I thought, wow, you're so cool. Song Yunhwan was unmoved. You mean at that time? Our team lost in the end. How could I beat a team by myself? The difference in power was too big, and at that time, his body wasn't very good. He was good at calculating distance, so he was able to keep up with the three-pointers. The rest of it was a mess. Wei Wei Bai, I finally see what it's like to be a loner. No one loves this guy. Wei Wei Bai's face turned red. She suddenly turned around and mumbled something. Song Yunhwan didn't hear clearly. Wei Wei Bai repeated loudly, the team was beaten, but after a while. Only then did she turn around and shout with a red face, but you defeated me. This sentence was loud and firm. Song Yunhwan's mind was like an echo chamber. The words you defeated me kept echoing in his mind. After Wei Wei Bai finished shouting, she realized that it was too straightforward. She lowered her voice again. That was the first time I was moved by you. It was also the first time in my life that I was moved by a man. After saying that, she finally used up all the courage she had mustered. She walked forward in embarrassment. Of course, I'm just a little moved. Song Yunhwan didn't know why, but for the first time, he felt that Cute could really be described as a three-dimensional woman. Strangely, he reached out and touched his chest. There was no heartbeat, but the burning impulse in his chest surged up again. Was he tempted? Ding. The male lead's favorability is at 20, an increase of 5 points. This was simply a huge sum of money falling from the sky. Bai Wei Wei was so moved that she fell apart. Song Yunhwan didn't know what he was thinking. He suddenly said, Do you want me to throw a ball for you? Wei Wei Bai stopped and looked at him excitedly. Really? Song Yunhwan nodded, then left for a bit. When he came back, he had changed into a red jersey and a basketball in his hand. He jumped a few times on the court, then suddenly shot. Whoosh! The ball neatly entered the hoop. It was a perfect jump. Wei Wei Bai looked at him in admiration, waving at him. Come on, Song Yunhwan. Song Yunhwan looked up at her in the audience. She was wearing a beautiful pink and orange dress, the wind blowing past. The light of the setting sun fell into her eyes. But in her eyes, He was the only one who was reflected. Song Yunhuan didn't understand why he felt this familiar feeling in his chest. He just felt that she looked like the anime characters he liked. Ding, the male lead's favorability is at 25. By Weiwei. So how did this mysterious favorability increase in the end? Song Yunhuan bounced the ball a few times and suddenly said, "The atmosphere isn't lively enough." The school was frighteningly quiet. It really couldn't be lively. Weiwei Bai, do you want to play a line dance song to liven things up? Song Yunhuan's eyes suddenly turned red. Come out, all of you. As soon as he finished speaking, a group of zombies staggered over and sat in the audience. They raised their hands and started shaking, their mouths making ho-ho sounds. Song Yunhuan was satisfied. Now it's lively. Then Weiwei Bai sat in the middle of a group of zombies, watching Song Yunhuan play basketball. Weiwei Bai, I really want to go on strike, haha. Download the at https://m.sashu.com// the save button at the bottom to record your reading record. Next time you open the bookshelf, you'll see it, if you like. Chapter 242. The zombies seemed to be controlled. Every time Song Yunhuan threw in a basketball, the zombies would raise their hands and clap. Weiwei Bai felt, oh, she didn't feel anything. It was just like that. Song Yunhuan's control over his strength was much stronger than a human's, so for him, shooting a three-pointer was a piece of cake. After he finished, he casually looked at the audience. He found Bai Weiwei sitting obediently in her seat, her face somewhat pale. Weiwei Bai yelled at the system, "What should I do? The zombie's intestines are falling out." Ah, is that a human hand in the zombie's mouth? Oh my god, the zombie on the left is completely naked, but his penis is rotten. A shadow suddenly fell over them. Weiwei Bai looked up and saw Song Yunhuan holding a basketball, smiling at her. What? I don't look good? Weiwei Bai reflexively replied, You look good, very good. Song Yunhuan's face darkened. She clearly wasn't looking. She didn't mean what she said. She couldn't have been lying when she said she was attracted to him, right? Song Yunhuan threw the basketball in his hand. With a bang, the basketball broke the hoop. Then he turned around and shouted at the clapping zombies, "Get out!" The zombies scattered and ran away. The court was silent again. Only a basketball slowly rolled by. After Song Yunhuan told the zombies to get out, he walked back with a cold face. Only then did Bai Weiwei react and immediately ran to catch up. Song Yunhuan's footsteps were so fast that Weiwei Bai couldn't see him. Weiwei Bai, 1 second he was fine. The next second his face changed. I don't understand the mind of an otaku. The system said, I understand. Cute girl, big sister, cat-eared lady, wife, natural airhead, witch, little maid queen, Weiwei Bai, get out. Although Song Yunhuan was hard to win over, Bai Weiwei had no choice but to accept her fate and follow him. Halfway through, they noticed that the number of zombies around them seemed to have increased. Moreover, every zombie looked at her with green light in their eyes. Weiwei Bai realized that they hadn't seen any zombies before because of Song Yunhuan, who knew where Song Yunhuan had run off to be angry. The zombies weren't as intimidating as Song Yunhuan, so they gathered when they saw her. They moved quickly, and the stench of rotting flesh filled the air. There was a nauseating smell. Weiwei Bai's expression changed. She immediately turned around and ran. The zombies were like carnivores that smelled fresh meat. They let out a hoarse hiss and excitedly chased after them. In the end, Weiwei Bai was just a normal person. Even if she tried her best, she still couldn't get rid of these fast-moving zombies. One of the zombies reached out and touched her back. Weiwei Bai was about to explode, although she wouldn't turn into a zombie. But being scratched by a zombie wasn't a good feeling either. The zombie's nails were so dirty. It was hard to bear rubbing it on her body. She suddenly tripped over a rock and fell forward onto the ground. She groaned and instinctively rolled to the side. Several zombies had already jumped where she had just landed. But this was the limit of her stamina. Another zombie pounced at him. Weiwei Bai's pupils shrank. Without thinking, she shouted, Song Yunhuan. As soon as she shouted, the zombie was kicked away. Then Bai Weiwei's body felt empty, and she was in Song Yunhuan's arms. /read https://m.sashu.com// to make it easier for you to read next time. You can click the Chapter 243. When the zombies saw Song Yunhuan, they immediately ran away. Song Yunhuan's face was cold. He could feel her trembling in fear. He snorted. Let's see if she still dared to lie to him. Suddenly, Wei Wei Bai said in a crying voice, Song Yunhuan, how could you leave me behind? Song Yunhuan's tense heart softened. He didn't know how to answer. You're the only one left. How could you leave me behind? Her cries grew louder. Her tears soaked the clothes on his chest, and they were as cold as his skin. Song Yunhuan's anger was beaten down by her tears. She complained in a muffled voice. You knew that I was almost bitten to death by zombies, but you let them sit next to me. You had so much fun playing basketball by yourself, but you left me alone in a pile of zombies. How could you be so bad? This complaint made Song Yunhuan completely lose his temper. He remembered that he wasn't afraid of zombies. But Wei Wei Bai was still human, so she was scared. Song Yunhuan's fingers stiffened. He couldn't say a few comforting words. They were dating. But for him, it was just a mission. But he started to get angry because she didn't watch him play. Because of her complaints, his heart softened. Song Yunhuan wasn't an idiot. He knew. He couldn't be as indifferent to Wei Wei Bai as before. Ding. The male lead's favorability has increased to 30. On the way back, Song Yunhuan held on to her and didn't let go. Bai Wei Wei was also unusually silent. She didn't pester him and chatter endlessly. He saw the familiar old house. Song Yunhuan paused and suddenly said, This is my home. Wei Wei Bai nodded. I know. The house had traces of Song Yunhuan's life everywhere. Only a fool wouldn't know that this was his home. Song Yunhuan smiled. Our family of 3 lived here. But then they divorced, and I was the only one left. When he finished speaking, his eyes dimmed. After entering the house, he placed Wei Wei Bai on the sofa. Wei Wei Bai sat a little uneasily, as if she was seriously hesitating about something. Song Yunhuan turned to cook. As soon as the food was ready, he walked out of the kitchen and saw Wei Wei Bai looking over. Her eyes were bright and clear, unlike before. Wei Wei Bai said seriously, From now on, there will be 2 people here, Song Yunhuan. Song Yunhuan paused and fell silent. Wei Wei Bai thought he didn't hear her clearly, so she said again, If I live with you, you won't be alone. The weight of this sentence was very heavy, but Song Yunhuan didn't know if she understood the weight of this. Wei Wei Bai saw that he didn't speak and felt a little awkward. Of course, this is my one-sided opinion. I know you hate me. If you chase me away or something. No? Song Yunhuan said slowly. I won't chase you away. Wei Wei Bai smiled bitterly. That's true. I still have to do experiments. Song Yunhuan didn't answer. He lowered his eyes in silence for a long time before finally looking up at Wei Wei Bai. The afterglow outside the window shone on his face, giving him a murderous look. You know what? I hate being abandoned the most. Bai Wei Wei held her breath because she saw the ferocious red light in his eyes. He revealed a cold smile. So you better remember your promise. You won't betray and run away. Otherwise, you don't want to know what I can do to you. Wei Wei Bai felt a chill run down her spine. She couldn't help but shiver. Then she heard the system notification. Ding. The male lead's favorability has increased to 40. And read the full article at https://www.sashu.com and read the full article at https://www.sashu.com to make it easier for you to read it next time. You can click the button at the bottom to record your reading record. Next time you open the bookshelf, you'll see it. If you like QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Chapter 244. Although the increase was large, it was cold and did not make anyone happy. Song Yunhuan finished and turned around. Let's eat. Wei Wei Bai ran over and tugged on his clothes. Song Yunhuan, are you okay with us living together? Living together, Song Yunhuan was silent for a moment. Then he heard her carefully say, I won't leave you. So can you not leave me behind? Her uneasiness was so obvious. Song Yunhuan sneered. So timid. She didn't know how to be independent. Then, he turned around and scooped her up in a princess carry. Eat. Idiot. Whatever, as long as he knew how to. He wouldn't dislike her. After the meal, Bai Weiwei took a bath and obediently lay in bed to sleep. Song Yunhuan was in a different room from her. Although Song Yunhuan wasn't reliable, he was very disciplined in this area. Suddenly barging in when she was taking a shower, or peeking when she was changing, or attacking in the middle of the night. So was this why the favorability was increasing so slowly? Weiwei Bai could only chat with the system. Ah, if it wasn't 4 months, but 40 years, then I could slowly increase my favorability. I wouldn't have to risk being eaten by Song Yunhuan. The system was washing its eyes. 40 years? I can't even stand 4 days. Your world is already so corny that I'm starting to doubt myself. Can't you be more normal? Weiwei Bai, do you think it's too hot? System. Hot. Insanely hot. Weiwei Bai. Then I'll do it. I'll burn you to death. The system snorted. If you really want to burn me to death, then wear the moon rabbit suit and seduce Song Yunhuan. Weiwei Bai was skeptical. Would it work? The system nodded. Of course. For an otaku, one of the characters is definitely his life, and the heartthrob personality will make you very similar to the character he likes. Otherwise, why do you think the favorability increased so quickly? Although the host was very good, appearance was also very good. People all looked at the face. Weiwei Bai pondered and suddenly got up. I've been wondering, where did Song Yunhuan get those dresses? I'm going to search. He must have collected a lot of clothes from anime characters. After searching, Bai Weiwei looked at the results of her search. A room full of dresses. A single otaku collecting these things. Weiwei Bai thought, holy shit, this pervert. She casually grabbed a piece of clothing and put it on. The system saw her disguise and asked, Host, what are you trying to do? Bai Weiwei's action of putting on her ears paused, and then she laughed sinisterly. What? I'm going to attack. If she didn't do something, how long would the favorability increase? Song Yunhuan had long heard Bai Weiwei's movements. He thought that she couldn't sleep, so he quietly lay on the bed and listened to her movements. The sound of her opening a door, the sound of her changing clothes. Song Yunhuan's song was. Her voice was soft, nervously cheering for herself. Song Yunhuan got up and went to the door. He waited for a while, but he didn't hear her knock. There was only the sound of her breathing outside the door. Song Yunhuan looked at the door calmly. What was she doing? After a while, Song Yunhuan lost his patience and opened the door. There was no one in front of the door. Following the sound of breathing, he looked to the right. He found Weiwei Bai sitting by the wall, her hands hugging her knees. She looked up timidly. Seeing Song Yunhuan, she lowered her head. Then she softly said, Meow? The sound echoed for a long time. Song Yunhuan was petrified. Weiwei Bai was wearing a short skirt and a sailor suit. She was wearing cat ears, and her long chestnut hair was down. She looked like a cute girl from the anime world. Ding. The male lead's favorability has increased to 42. Weiwei Bai and the system were expressionless. Holy shit. She could really increase favorability. Song Yunhuan's voice was unsteady. What are you doing? Weiwei Bai got up, her cat ears shaking. Then she threw herself into his arms. Please be my sugar daddy. Song Yunhuan felt like the barrier between them had been broken. All that was left was her sweet sugar daddy. Ding. The male lead's favorability has increased to 45. The system silently took out a few dozen pounds of eye drops. No, it was so hot it was going blind. It couldn't bear the daily life of a perverted zombie otaku and a pretentious idiot. Download the https://www.sashu.com/download the full article. https://www.sashu.com download the full article. https://www.sashu.com download the full article. https://m/sashu.com that save button below to record this reading. Chapter 245. When did he immerse himself in 2D? Song Yunhwan wasn't sure. Your mother and I are getting a divorce. We're here to let you know. It was a rational voice that was so calm that it bordered on cruelty, coming out of his father's mouth. How did he react at the time? I understand. You've always been a good boy, but because of my work, I'll be overseas for a long time. Your mother is planning to remarry, so you might have to live alone for the rest of your life. Song Yunhwan didn't know how to react. He only heard himself say calmly, okay, I'm fine. He was only 11. Just like that, he lived at home alone. Even though he didn't have parents in this family, Song Yunhwan couldn't sleep for a while. He analyzed his situation rationally. He knew he was lonely, so he started to make friends. But maybe he was unlucky. The friends saw that he was alone and tried to lure him into the abyss of drugs with crystal meth, just for the living expenses his parents gave him every month. He calmly planned everything and sent that friend and his accomplice to the police station. Then he found that he didn't need anyone. Sometimes he couldn't sleep, so he got up to solve problems. But school was too easy. He could only go online to find problems to solve. As he did, he accidentally entered a 2D website. Then it got out of hand. He fell in love with 2D characters. Because they wouldn't betray him, crying or laughing, he didn't need to guard against them. Gradually, he became more and more alienated from people. He liked to watch anime alone more and more, immersing himself in otaku culture. How did he meet Wei Wei Bai? It was like he saw a sentence. If a girl is willing to dress up as your favorite character for you, it must be true love. And then Wei Wei Bai came to confess. She had a sweet smile and was pretty. Maybe his brain went haywire, and he said yes. Within a day, he started to regret it. 3 days was enough for him to analyze her shallow, pretentious, and foolish character. Sure enough, he didn't like anyone in 3D. Break up. But when did she change? The end of the world. Zombies were everywhere. She was the one who pushed him into the pile of zombies. He only had one thought, and that was to kill her. Later on, he clearly wanted to use her as a test subject and cut her into pieces piece by piece. She was still spoiled, pretentious, and stupid. She was practically useless in the apocalypse. She would definitely die if she went out. A cannon fodder level character. But this cannon fodder said that he liked him. One sentence after another. She was stuck in a pile of zombies and refused to say that she liked him. She was in so much pain from the experiment, but she still said that she liked him. She clearly knew that he was a monster, but she still liked him. How could someone like him so much? She was not his type at all. Stupid, useless, pretentious, and greedy for pleasure. She had all the shortcomings that a woman should not have. No normal man would like such a woman. But she liked him. Was there anyone in this world who would like him? Other than Wei Wei Bai, there was no one else. Please provide for me. How could she say that? As a person immersed in otaku culture, he felt embarrassed. She was wearing a sailor suit and cat ears. She hugged him and refused to let go. She was so nervous and shy that her whole body was trembling. She tried so hard to say, "Do you like this?" Song Yunhwan, I like it too. How could she like it? She was just saying it to please him. But who in this world would be willing to say that to please him? No one. Other than Wei Wei Bai. Song Yunhwan felt his eyes sting. He hugged her, all kinds of words churning in his heart. He wanted to say something. He opened his mouth a few times and finally said softly, "Wei Wei Bai? Yes? Your cat ears are the wrong way around. Also, I like moon hair. I collected her suit. Do you want to wear it?" Wei Wei Bai, wear your ass. On behalf of the moon, I'll destroy you, you big pervert. Chapter 246. No matter what. The favorability shot up to 55. Right, when she put on the moon hair suit, that bastard Song Yunhwan's favorability went up by 10 points. What did 10 points mean? It was a favorability that she hadn't seen in all her struggles. In the end, it was because he was wearing this stupid thing. The favorability went up so easily. For the first time, Wei Wei Bai felt like she wasn't suited for the strategy. Because she couldn't read Song Yunhwan's heart. She didn't understand the heart of an otaku. It must be because she didn't watch enough Doraemon as a child. Haha. Right, that night, nothing happened to them. Because Song Yoon-hwan, that psychopath, took out one dress after another. In addition to the moon hair suit, there was Kagura's red qipao, Sakura's fluffy skirt, Kikyo's witch costume, Sakura's little red dress, flip table. Strike. I'm not doing this anymore. Wei Wei Bai only thought about it, because she found that every time she put on a new outfit, Song Yoon-hwan's favorability would go up. 55, 57, 60, 65. She didn't expect Song Yoon-hwan to be such a pervert. Wei Wei Bai hugged the system and cried, I've lost my integrity. How could I humiliate myself for favorability? The system's heart softened. Well, you don't have much integrity, so it's not a pity to lose it. Don't be sad. Bai Weiwei stared blankly, then thought of something. That's right, slag stem. Say, if I were to wear an anime costume and lie on the bed, wouldn't the favorability directly break 100? System. What happened to integrity? What happened to being humiliated? You can't be so low. Host, wake up. The system was about to stop her when it suddenly remembered. If it goes over 100, won't the side mission fail? Wei Wei Bai said lightly, didn't I shock you? System. What did that mean? Did that mean it didn't matter if it didn't complete the mission? What happened to the promised sincere friendship between the host and the system? Wei Wei Bai ate with a face full of despair, while Song Yoon-hwan sewed across from her. Song Yoon-hwan swept his eyes over her figure. Then, she silently reduced her bust size. Wei Wei Bai didn't expect that more than half of the dresses in his collection were made by him. Moreover, because many of the dresses did not fit her size, he would use his own needle and thread to change them himself. After Wei Wei Bai finished eating, she saw that he had finished another dress. His speed was faster than a sewing machine. She looked at him hesitantly. Song Yoon-hwan looked up, his expression gentle. What's wrong? Wei Wei Bai said nervously, Don't we need to do experiments? Song Yoon-hwan's stitches paused. His eyes darkened. He was silent for a moment before saying, Do you want to go on a date with me? After finishing the experiment, he went on a date. So she wanted to date him. Wei Wei Bai blushed. Song Yoon-hwan thought for a moment, then dragged her to the basement. He started the experiment. He checked her body. Too thin, not enough nutrition. She needed more nourishment. Too pale, not enough blood. She needed more nourishment. She would have menstrual cramps. Brown sugar, ginger tea, hot water packs. She could take painkillers. Her hands and feet were cold. Not only was she not getting enough nutrition, she was also not getting enough exercise. She could go outside and run in the sun. Her body was not strong enough. She could do some simple stretching exercises. Wei Wei Bai lay on the bed. He rubbed here and there. His face was serious. Behind his glasses, his eyes were so serious that there was no trace of emotion. Wei Wei Bai, this massaging technique of picking ingredients. Could he not help but want to cook her? Song Yoon-hwan finished recording her body's data, then wrote down a bunch of ingredients and necessities that needed to be swept. When he came back to his senses, he saw that Wei Wei Bai was staring at him. He pushed up his glasses. What's wrong? Wei Wei Bai hesitated. You're not going to give me needles or take my blood? Song Yoon-hwan was stung by this sentence. Download the https://www.sashu.com/download the full article. https://www.sashu.com download the full article. https://www.sashu.com download the full article. https://m.sashu.com// to make it easier for you to read next time. You can click at the bottom to record this reading. Chapter 247. He took a deep breath and said lightly, No need. Wei Wei Bai was confused. Then what should we do? Nothing. Song Yoon-hwan was suddenly excited. Seeing the frightened Wei Wei Bai, he tried to calm himself down. Then he said gently, The research is almost done. You don't need to do anything else. Wei Wei Bai didn't believe him. How much is almost done? Song Yoon-hwan suddenly quieted down. He stared at her. a strange emotion in his eyes. You're looking forward to me becoming human? Wei Wei Bai's lips trembled. She didn't know what to do, but she quickly nodded seriously. Yes. Song Yunhuan's dead heart felt like it was soaking in warm water. It was very comfortable. If he was still human, would his heart beat faster because of her? Song Yunhuan suddenly looked forward to it. He couldn't help but tell the truth. I'm almost done with the research. I still need some help. If I can get the recently developed vaccine from L City Base, I'll succeed. After he mutated, he found that he could control zombies. He could even easily see through other zombies' eyes and see information from other places. So even if he was sitting at home, he could collect all the information he wanted. After he finished speaking, he felt that if he said too much, he would give her too much pressure. So he picked her up. Okay, let's go on a date. Wei Wei Bai had to wear a pretty pink and blue dress. She held hands with Song Yunhuan as they went on a date. The date was at the mall and supermarket. Song Yunhuan took a lot of things, including sanitary pads, ginger tea, hot water bottles, women's underwear. Because meat was starting to expire, he started raising chickens, ducks, geese, vegetables, fish, and so on in the yard. Was there anything this guy didn't know? He actually knew so many skills just to stay at home. He held Wei Wei Bai's hand in one hand and pushed the cart full of things out of the supermarket with the other. After 2 steps, he suddenly stopped, a red light flashing in his eyes. Then he quickly turned around, threw everything away, and ran forward with Wei Wei Bai in his arms. Boom! A huge explosion sounded behind him. The heat wave and the impact carried the gravel behind them. Song Yunhuan didn't even blink. He pulled Wei Wei Bai into his embrace. He used his back to cut off everything that could hurt people. The glass shards pierced into his flesh. He frowned, but his expression did not change at all. He turned around and saw that a helicopter had been used to drop bombs. Furthermore, through the eyes of the zombies, they discovered that an army had entered the city and was heading straight for them. Was he the target? He hugged Wei Wei Bai's fingers tightly. Wei Wei Bai stiffened but did not say anything. Song Yunhuan immediately put her in a hidden corner. I'll lure them away. You hide first. Wei Wei Bai nodded obediently and squatted in the corner without moving. Song Yunhuan turned to leave, but heard her say, "Come back quickly." He couldn't help but smile. It was good to have someone who cared about him. Ding! The male lead's favorability is at 70. Wei Wei Bai. The favorability increased so quickly, she was very touched. However, before she could finish feeling touched, a hand suddenly reached out from the darkness and pulled her along, running forward with all its might. She was shocked to see that the person pulling her was actually Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao's face was serious. Your Highness, I'm here to save you. Wei Wei Bai. Who's your Highness? Let go. Lin Xiao didn't let go. Don't be afraid. I know that the zombie is threatening you. My uncle is the boss of L City now. I'll protect you. Wei Wei Bai heard this and held his hand, running forward. Why didn't you say so earlier? Run faster. Wasn't L City the place where the vaccine was developed? If they found the vaccine and turned Song Yunhuan into a human, the favorability would be 100. Song Yunhuan returned to where Wei Wei Bai had been. She was gone. His hands were covered in blood, and his eyes were deep red. Then he looked through the zombie's eyes and saw Bai Wei Wei holding Lin Zhao's hand, running to the front of the military vehicle and getting in. She hadn't been forced. She had run away on her own. Haha, Song Yunhuan suddenly laughed. Then his face turned ferocious. Wei Wei Bai, Wei Wei Bai. He sounded like he was crying blood. Chapter 248. Wei Wei Bai successfully boarded the car and left the city, arriving at L City. Along the way, the system listened. The sound of favorability dropping. Ding! The male lead's favorability is at 65. The system said, the male lead is exploding in anger. He's venting his anger by killing zombies. Ding! The male lead's favorability is at 60. The system said, what the fuck? The male lead is using his bare hands to fight a helicopter. The helicopter was blown up by him. Ding! The male lead's favorability is at 55. The system said, you should wear a dress more often to increase the favorability. Look, The favorability is so easy to spend. It dropped so quickly. Ding. The male lead's favorability is at 40. The system clutched its heart. Is there still any sincerity between people? Is the favorability made of plastic? How can it melt in the face of anger? It can't drop like this. Ding. The male lead's favorability is at 35. The system plugged its ears, not wanting to listen to the automatic notification. It said with a stoic expression, the male lead returned home and started tearing up the dress. It's good that he did. People have to grow up eventually. If he plays with these little girls' toys all day, can he still have a good relationship? Ding. The male lead's favorability is at 40. The system pulled out its earplugs. It heard something. Ding. The male lead's favorability is at 45. He's trying to sew the torn dress back together. It seems like he's in a lot of pain. Favorability is at 55. He went to the amusement park to ride the Ferris wheel. Favorability is at 60. The system rubbed its bitter tears, so sad. He clearly has no tears, but he's curled up into a ball and crying. Wei Wei Bai was expressionless. When the military car entered L City, she suddenly pulled out the earplugs in her ears. What did you say? The system, Wei Wei Bai asked. Did the favorability drop by a lot? It said so much, but the host didn't hear a single word. The system became haggard. No, the favorability is at 60, but why did you have to make him misunderstand and run out? Wei Wei Bai pondered for a moment, as if she was organizing her words. Because if you don't let Song Yunhuan face his inner flaws, he won't be able to reach 100 points. After a few attempts, Wei Wei Bai had a rough idea of the rules. 100 was equivalent to truly falling in love with someone, and she was very clear that if she had liked him to the extreme before she was 100 years old, in that case, he had to cross the threshold of like and reach the final stage of love. It was impossible to rely on trickery and gentleness. Like Song Yunhuan, even if she stayed by his side for 100 years, he'd only be at 99, not 100. He probably didn't even know how much of an evasive and unconfident personality he had. Such a person didn't even know how to love herself, let alone falling in love with her. Wei Wei Bai rubbed her temples. She had also put in a lot of effort for this strategy. So, I have to let him realize that there is someone in this world who loves him so much that she can do anything and never change. Only then would he give his love to me. Letting him misunderstand is also letting him know that he can make mistakes. When the misunderstanding is resolved, he'll be more mature. When she saw the room full of 2D dresses, she already knew Song Yunhuan's character. A man who was addicted to 2D and didn't want to return to reality. If he wasn't allowed to grow up, he would never know how to truly love someone. And pain and regret could definitely make people grow up overnight. Download the https://www.sashu.com/download the full article. https://www.sashu.com download the full article. https://www.sashu.com download the full article. https://m/sashu. Combo make it easier for you to read next time. You can click at the bottom to record this reading. Next time you open the bookshelf, you'll see it, if you like. Chapter 249. The system watched her calm down. She was so cold that it was scary. The system muttered to itself, sometimes, I don't know if it's good or bad for you to have the emotional deprivation device on. A host with the emotional deprivation device on wouldn't have feelings for anyone. Wei Wei Bai didn't hear it, but when she opened the door to get out, the calmness on her face collapsed. Slagstem, if the misunderstanding isn't resolved in time, I won't really get eaten by Song Yunhuan, right? The system said, Don't worry, it will. Wei Wei Bai held onto the door. How about I go back and explain? The system. What happened to being calm? What happened to healing other people's wounds? What happened to not being able to get 100 affection points? Give me back my resolute and resourceful host. It sighed. There's another way to die that suits you. Wei Wei Bai? ? The system said. Maybe you'll die of cowardice. Wei Wei Bai, Entering the L City base was unexpectedly smooth. Wei Wei Bai only had to smile, and everyone present, including the prosecutors, opened the back door for her to enter the L City base. Wei Wei Bai said, "Is the charm of a heartthrob that scary?" The system said, "You're overthinking it." Lin Xiao went around saying that you're his fiancé, so he opened the back door for you. Wei Wei Bai turned around and saw Lin Xiao staring at her, infatuated. She couldn't help but shiver. She didn't want to know what she was like in his eyes. Because of Lin Xiao, she was given special treatment in L City. So even if it was just to see the newly developed vaccine, Lin Xiao also happily led the way. "Did you know? Only our base has developed it. When the time comes, everyone can get a zombie vaccine, so they don't have to worry about being bitten by zombies." Wei Wei Bai praised. "You guys are amazing." Lin Xiao staggered, tears of joy welling up in his eyes. The goddess praised him. Wei Wei Bai didn't want to know what Lin Xiao was thinking. Those blocked subtitles must be scarier than nuclear power. In the laboratory, because Lin Xiao wanted to secretly let her take a look at the vaccines, he thought of ways to send the researchers away. Therefore, Lin Xiao easily showed her the vaccine. Wei Wei Bai looked at the small bottle in her hand. The black liquid inside was bubbling. It didn't look like a vaccine. It was like the poison in a witch's pot. He had no appetite at all for this vaccine. Wei Wei Bai looked at this thing and pondered. Where should she hide it? After thinking for a while, she looked at the shallow gap in the middle of her chest. It was as if he couldn't clamp it. Before he could think about it, the alarm suddenly sounded. The zombie tide is coming. Lin Zhao's expression changed. He immediately said, "I'll go out and take a look." "You mustn't go out." With that, he rushed out. Wei Wei Bai took the opportunity to stuff the bottle into her inner pocket. Then she walked out. People were running in all directions. "Damn it, it's a large-scale zombie tide. What's going on? The nearby zombies have been wiped out. Where did these zombies come from? There are high-level mutated zombies, and there's more than one. How is it possible? These zombies won't gather together. The periphery of the base has been destroyed. Hurry up and move people." Wei Wei Bai saw Lin Xiao running over. He grabbed her hand. "Wei Wei, my uncle and the main force haven't returned yet. The outside is completely surrounded by zombies. Let's take you to the underground shelter to hide." Wei Wei Bai could only run with him. Chapter 250. Lin Xiao was still muttering, "Damn it, what's going on? These zombies seem to be under orders. If they weren't so stupid, I would suspect that they were looking for someone." Wei Wei Bai, Song Yunhuan came so fast? She wasn't ready yet. Suddenly, a cold whistling sound came from the side. Lin Zhao's expression changed. He dragged Wei Wei Bai and the two of them fell to the ground. It was a zombie, dark green all over. Its limbs were so long that they were completely out of human proportions. Its yellow eyes glowed with a cold light. Its attack didn't succeed. Its face twisted in anger. It had emotions. It was a high-level zombie. Lin Xiao knew that they were in big trouble. High-level zombies were especially scary because they were starting to have thoughts. The zombie was about to tear them apart, but when it saw Wei Wei Bai, its eyes narrowed. It dug through its tattered clothes and finally pulled out a picture. It was a picture of Wei Wei Bai wearing a princess dress. It compared the picture. So cute, it was the person they were looking for. The more it looked, the cuter she was. The zombie's eyes were confused for a moment, and then its brain suddenly started to hurt. Its master was warning it. The zombie suddenly howled, the sound sharp and scary. All of a sudden, all the zombies knew that they had found the person. Then the zombies ran over, howling. Wei Wei Bai, they're all coming for her. As expected, retribution came quickly. Song Yunhuan actually wanted the zombies to eat her. The zombies ran over and then obediently surrounded her. Each zombie carefully bit her. The skin was broken, and the wound was shallow. A dozen bites. Then, the high-level zombie howled again. The zombies immediately spread out and retreated with a rumbling sound. The base was in ruins. The dead were dead, the injured were injured. It was a horrible sight. But the strange thing was that the zombies didn't eat them all. They came and went quickly. The system said, "Why are they here? To get revenge?" So they bit you a few times? Wei Wei Bai saw that her damage hadn't changed and guessed what Song Yunhuan was thinking. But she didn't explain, and Lin Xiao next to her. The zombies completely ignored him, and he escaped death without being bitten. When he saw the wounds on Wei Wei Bai's body, his expression changed and he began to struggle violently. Then he suddenly said, "You didn't mutate?" Wei Wei Bai hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I'm immune to the zombie virus." Lin Xiao scratched his head in frustration. Damn it, he seemed to have made a decision. He immediately jumped up, pulled her, and ran out. "Hurry up and leave this place. Many people saw that you didn't mutate. Don't stay here." But before he could take a few steps, Lin Xiao was suddenly kicked out. "Where are you going?" Lin Xiao's uncle appeared like a villain. Lin Xiao shouted, "Uncle, Wei Wei is innocent. You can't use her for experiments." Lin Fampai snorted coldly and then looked at Wei Wei Bai with a confused expression. Those pink bubbles appeared again. She's so much like my wife who turned into a zombie. So righteous, so kind. Wei Wei Bai immediately blocked it. Damn subtitles. Why did they malfunction again? Of course, Lin Fampai wasn't someone to be trifled with. He said, "This girl is clearly someone who likes to sacrifice herself. Look at her face. It's like the face of a saint." Wei Wei Bai quickly explained, "I'm vicious, selfish, heartless, cold, and unreasonable. Please don't misunderstand me." Download the https://m.com button at the bottom to record this chapter. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.